Good evening and good day, everybody, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. This is episode 344. We are discussing what's happening in the world. We are going to discuss Iran, the war on Iran. We're going to discuss that. And always, as always, before we begin, let me see who all is there on the live chat. I will greet some of you. Darshan Patel, bonjour. Geopolitical Dubai from Indore. Good to see you, sir. Alka Shikari, good evening. Ankush Sharma Photography. Here we are. Really now, Miss Patel. Namaste. Abhishek Shukla Live. 24 Bharat. Abhishek Shukla Live once again. Dheeraj Kamath. Meghna Kotari says it's a very pleasant evening in Bangalore. It's raining. I'm glad. Mehul Rajesh Babu. Bhuvanendra Uppada. Harish Madhu. Real Painter. Good to see you. Samarth Pramanik, namaste. Ansh Divu, namaste. Sar, Ashwani Sharma, hello. Neeraj Bharadwaj, Arvind K.R. Singh, Nirvana Shanks, Ave, Nirvana Shanks' son. Arvind K.R. Singh once again. Who else do we have? Okay, SKR 7733, Ikam Jot, Abhishek Shukla Live once again from Kanpur. I haven't been to Kanpur. Would love to come there. Pratardana, namaste. Nirvana Shanks once again. Somi 0709 from Jaipur, I think. Yes. Geopolitical Dubai, Real Vladimir Putin. Who else do we have? Good to see Real Vladimir Putin as always. And Polynomial 4, Kahan from Saket, Delhi. Swastik Kule. Dheeraj Kamath, good morning. Ashwin R9889. This is Harsh Kapoor. Full support to you as well. Swastik Kole. Kahan Tech G. Chat DSP. Namaste. Good to see you, Chat DSP. It's been a while. Good to see you. Vaibhav Kumar Devangan. All right. Meet Mistri Kemcho. Yes, all good. Shrishti Suriguri, good evening, ma'am. Shishir Upadhyaya, greetings. Kahan, Swastik Kole, Yashwant Sudhir, Raghuveer Solanki. Shreyas Mitra is here from Moscow. Good evening. Gravity kaha hai? Abhi 1111. Okay, Pranam. Sorry, this is Harsh Kapoor. Nutan Roshan, good to see you. Oh, Arya. Precious Talks, good evening. Vibhav Venkatesh. Dheeraj Kamath, Sagar Ghare, namaskar. Reddy, always Reddy, good to see you. Ankush Sharma once again, and lots of other people. Satoru Gojo, good to see you. Satoru Gojo. Jay Guman is from Montreal. Good morning to you, sir. Jay Guman. And so many other people. Satoru Gojo, Aryan Shvarma, Animish Bharatiya, good evening, namaste. Aniruddha Rajnekar, Ansh Divu, and everybody else. Scintillating Kids, Ajinkya Pawar, JRXNA, hello. And Jagdish Mali, Shiv Kapoor from LinkedIn, who was joined from LinkedIn. Kitse is here from Dublin, Ireland. Ankit, all right. Okay, good to see you all. So good to have you all on this live stream. Before I take some questions, let us see what's been happening in the world. The Americans looks like they are planning for a ground invasion. A ground invasion of Iran. It looks like that's what they are planning. Maybe it's a bluff, maybe it's a real thing, but let's see what have been the developments in the past 24 or so hours. Let's see. So here we have this. This is a message by the Lieutenant General of the US Marine Corps. The commander of the Marine Forces Reserve and Marine Forces South. It's from 26th of March. He says, Marines, our nation is in a consequential moment. Global events are shaping our nation's security, and we must be ready. I ask you directly, are you truly ready to deploy, fight, and win? Are your skills sharp, your standards high, and your gear prepared for immediate movement? Is your desert Marpat readily available? Is your gear packed and ready to pick up and move? Or is it stored away in a corner of your home? Are your family's affairs in order? When the call comes, readiness will be assumed, not questioned. Your readiness is not a declaration, it's a daily commitment. This is not a theoretical exercise. Our forces are currently engaged in operations connected to Iran, and are positioned to preserve stability in the Western Hemisphere. Our enemies get a vote, and a mass mobilization could become reality. We are operating in this environment now. History demands our readiness today, tomorrow, and every day. Your preparation for combat is forged in your daily actions, your training, and the seriousness with which you handle every responsibility. We are measured not by our intentions, but by what we can do right now. Check your readiness, tighten your standards, prepare your family. Our nation expects a disciplined, capable force ready for immediate action. That force is the Marine Forces Reserve. That standard begins with and must be held by you. The fight is on. So American Marines are being told to prepare for combat, prepare for your family. So looks like a ground invasion could be on the cards. Okay. Uh, Here we have more breaking news. The US is preparing for a potential ground invasion into Iran that would last for up to 2 months, as per the Washington Post. Thousands of American soldiers are arriving in the Middle East for what could become a dangerous new phase of the war. Any invasion would involve raids by a mixture of special operations forces and conventional infantry troops, as per American officials. The American president, Mr. Trump, has wavered between declaring that the war is winding down and threatening to amplify it. As we know, every other day he says that the war is almost over. We've almost won it. Discussions over the past month have touched upon the possible seizure of Kharg Island and raids into other coastal areas near the Strait of Hormuz. The Iran war appears to be entering a new era. So we could be in for massive, escalation of the war. What else do we have? This is the U.S. Central Command Twitter account. Okay, and they've posted these photographs of their assets being deployed into the region. U.S. sailors and Marines aboard USS Tripoli, LHA-7, arrived in the U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility March 27. The America class amphibious assault ship serves as the flagship for the Tripoli Amphibious Ready Group, 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, composed of about 3,500 sailors, and Marines, in addition to transport and strike fighter aircraft, as well as amphibious assault and tactical assets. So I'm not sure what the Central Command Area of Responsibility is. I suppose we could Google that. Okay, what's CENTCOM? What's the area of responsibility? So this is their area of responsibility. Okay, so this the USS Tripoli has arrived in the US CENTCOM area of responsibility. So it could be anywhere between the Red Sea to the so-called Arabian Sea to the Gulf of Oman, or maybe even the Persian Gulf. Entering the Persian Gulf is almost impossible for them because the Iranians will take them out. But they could be somewhere in this region, the CENTCOM region. This is the CENTCOM region. You have US EUCOM, US CENTCOM, US AFRICOM, and then you have US PacificCom or something. So that's where they have entered. So looks like the war could be escalating soon. And this is an update from US CENTCOM, the Twitter account, March 28th update. Today is March 29. US Central Command commenced Operation Epic Fury against Iran at the direction of the EU president on February 28. As we know, CENTCOM forces are striking targets to dismantle the Iranian regime's security apparatus, prioritizing locations that pose an imminent threat. They claim to have struck more than 11,000 targets. They claim to have undertaken more than 11,000 combat flights, and they claim to have damaged or destroyed more than 150 Iranian vessels so far. And they have all these assets that they have deployed in air and sea and land. Patriot intercepted missile systems, THAAD anti-ballistic missile systems. Those have been destroyed mostly, or they've run out of interceptors. But yes, they've put this entire list out of all kinds of aircraft and naval assets and land assets. What else? Type of targets. What are the different types of targets they've taken out? Yeah, so they've listed the types of targets, and that's an update from these folks here. As we know, oil is becoming a major issue as a consequence of this really stupid war. Okay, looks like various parts of the world are going to start running out, okay, of oil, or at least deliveries from the Persian Gulf region, the Strait of Hormuz region, will stop soon. So for the US region, it will stop by April 15th. For the EU region, it will stop by April 10th. For Africa, by March 20 to April 1st, which we are already into. For Australia, by April 20. And for East Asia, April 1st. India is the closest to the Strait of Hormuz, actually, right? Of among the major civilized nations or major nations. So India is the closest to the Strait of Hormuz, and we will have to see what happens vis-a-vis India. So India consumes about 2.3 uh, million barrels per day, okay, of oil. China consumes 5.2 million barrels per day. Taiwan 0.65, South Korea 2.2, Japan 2.3, and so on. So this is the situation, and depending on how Trump goes ahead with his escalations and a potential ground invasion, things could get worse potentially. So we will have to keep an eye on this. Um, and at the same time, there is escalation happening in the Ukraine theater, right? So this accounts as oil seems to be on its way to potentially exceeding 150 dollars per barrel. Ukraine has again bombed Russia's second largest refinery, causing a massive explosion. So yes, Ukraine is working in conjunction with the Americans, and as we can see, what's happening in Persia, it's tied into what's happening in Ukraine and in Russia. And the Ukrainians are hitting very hard at Russia's oil production and transportation export capabilities, and Russia seems to be sitting and taking it, right? So this is going to be a major problem for India, because see, our option, our alternative to what comes from Hormuz is what comes from Russia in terms of oil. But if Russia's ability to deliver oil to India is impacted, that's going to be a very significant problem for India as well as China, right? So this is what's happening. The Iranians are taking out American aircraft. This is an AVAX aircraft, E3 Sentry AVAX, completely destroyed. The Americans said that it's been damaged. This is not damage. This is destruction, right? And this is a very expensive aircraft, and there's only about 20 something of this aircraft in existence, and the production line stopped a long time ago. So these are precious assets that the Americans have, and the Iranians have hit very precisely at this specific point in the aircraft. So this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's got this massive radar. That's above the aircraft, and that's what the Iranians have very precisely destroyed. Uh, so the Iranians, they have targeted the key rear housing surveillance radar, which is the key component. It's a very expensive and very rare component, and the Iranians have completely destroyed that. So here's some analysis by Captain Titan. Targeting the rear housing surveillance radar rather than the aircraft's more obvious components reveals Iranian targeting intelligence of a sophistication that goes beyond knowing where the aircraft is parked. Right? Tehran knew which specific subsystem to destroy to maximize permanent mission kill probability while minimizing the munitions required to achieve this. So the Iranians have been studying American military doctrine for over 4 decades. They've been studying aircraft architecture and operational vulnerabilities produced by. So all of this, it produced a targeting decision precise enough to obliterate an irreplaceable $500 million asset through its most critical and least armored component. Right. So that's what the Iranians have achieved. Now Iran says that the US has until March 30, which is tomorrow, 12 p.m. Tehran time, to condemn the bombing of Iranian universities. And if the US doesn't do this, Iran will carry out strikes against multiple American universities in the Middle East. Right? So escalation. What else? Okay, this is interesting. So CNN satellite analysis and ALMA research findings show that Iran's underground tunnel cities with internal rail systems that move missiles to blast door exits, they have survived the bombing campaign largely intact. And the geology is the real defense. So it's been a month now. The Americans have been bombarding, they've been striking at these Iranian tunnels, okay, internal underground cities. But it's Iran still keeps firing. It's not stopped Iran from firing. Of course, the number of missiles launched per day have come down by 90%, right? But the precision targeting, it's intact, and the number of hits are actually increasing potentially per day, because the Americans and the Israelis have run out of interceptors mostly. So that's why the Iranians have brought the number of launches down by 90%. Um, but Iran keeps fighting, and the reason is that the reason does not lie above the ground, but hundreds of meters beneath the ground, inside a network of underground missile cities connected by internal railways that have been carved into mountains that no bomb in the current American or Israeli arsenal can actually reach. Right. Um, so So what happens is after the Americans and Israelis bomb the tunnel entrances, construction equipment appears there within 48 hours and it digs out the blocked entrances and restores access to the tunnels below. So the strikes on surface infrastructure had only temporarily rendered large missile launch bases inoperable. Any Iranian asset located within underground infrastructure, the center concluded, survived. So whatever is below the ground, deep inside, all of it survives. The entrances are destroyed, and within 48 hours, they are operationalized all over again. The central constraint is geological, and it's been publicly stated by Iran itself. So Iran has built its missile bases across provinces and cities at a depth of 500 meters. You simply can't destroy something that's 500 meters underground. The most powerful American, bunker buster bomb, it can penetrate about 60 meters of reinforced concrete or 40 meters of moderate rock. And these in Iranian assets are built under granite, which is harder than moderate rock. So it's almost impossible. It's not almost impossible. It is impossible for the Americans to destroy these Iranian underground cities. So yeah, this is something we had discussed yesterday. That's why I thought I'll show you this thing. Then this is a comment. This is a tweet by an Indian former diplomat, Madam Nirupama Menon Rao. Who is this lady? She is a retired civil servant who served as India's foreign secretary from 2009 to 2011, and she was also India's ambassador to the US, to China, and Sri Lanka during her career. Okay, very senior retired diplomat. Now, what has she said? This is her geopolitical take. She says that the world is being reordered by those who act and by those who define. If India, she says, if India wishes to be counted among those who define, it must ensure that its silence does not speak louder than its convictions. We are living, she says, through a moment when the rules of the international system are being rewritten in real time. Assassinations of leaders, the killing of civilians, open assertions of force, these are no longer aberrations but instruments. In such a world, silence is not neutrality. It is read, interpreted, and often misread as consent. India has long claimed a distinctive voice and distinctive space in global affairs, not as an appendage to power, but as a voice shaped by its own civilizational experience and its history of speaking for sovereignty, restraint, and balance. India has had a history of moralizing and lecturing the world. That's what she is essentially telling you. Okay? And that voice mattered, she claims, because it was consistent even when inconvenient. Strategic autonomy cannot mean adjusting our language to the hierarchy of power. Restraint has its place, calibration is necessary, but when fundamental questions arise, EM dash about sovereignty, about the limits of force, about the protection of civilians, EM dash, India cannot afford to be silent. A moral compass is not an instrument of foreign policy. A moral compass is its direction. Without it, realism drifts into accommodation, and autonomy into ambiguity. This war has damaged India's interest in every practical sense. Yes, that's true. I agree with that. It has raised costs, narrowed diplomatic room, stressed shipping, etc., 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 and injected fresh instability into a region vital to India's economic and external strategy. It's done. Yes, correct. She's right about that. Even if New Delhi can cushion the blow, it cannot plausibly claim that the blow itself serves India. Nobody is claiming that. Who is claiming that? The deeper question is whether India is willing to say so with sufficient clarity. So she's putting out facts here, but over here she's claiming that India needs to moralize and lecture the world. And what does that achieve? Is my question. She's saying that we are living through a moment where the rules of the international system are being rewritten in real time. That's not the case. We have always lived in such a time. Whenever the US has wanted to wage war, they have waged war. What was 1991? What was 1991? The Iraq war, the invasion of Iraq. What was that? The same thing was going on at the time. 2003. The second Iraq war, the second invasion of Iraq, same thing, right? A killing of civilians, million, maybe a million Iraqis were killed in this 2003 invasion, right? Open assertions of wars, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. Open assertions of wars. uh, Assassinations of leaders, well, the Americans have done that too, okay? So it's not like it's something new, as she is claiming, but she is claiming that India should not keep quiet. India should lecture the world. India should moralize. We need to have a moral compass because the war has damaged India's interests. So by lecturing the world and saying that you are evil and you are naughty and you are bad, how does that serve India's interests, and how does it stop the war from damaging our interests? I'm not really sure what she's claiming, but this has been historically India's diplomacy. Historically, Indian diplomacy was all about taking the moral high ground and lecturing the world and telling the world how it should behave. And it never ever served India's interests. My take is very clear. My position is very clear. India should keep quiet about these matters. This is not our war. We did not start it. Should take action that limits the damage that this war is causing to India's interests and India's economy and so on. India should take vigorous action, as much action as possible, to limit the damage this war will is causing and will cause potentially to our interests. That is what we should do. We should not go and lecture the world and take the moral high ground that you cannot do these things. You can't assassinate world leaders. You can't kill civilians. You can't show open force, naked force, blatant force. You can't violate the international law, the UN Charter, all those things. How does that serve us? How does that serve our interests? By lecturing not the world but the US essentially. She is implying, this lady, that India should lecture the US. That you are doing very naughty stuff. You are being very evil. That's what she's saying. That's not for her to do. That's not for the government of India to do. The government of India has to act according to certain parameters. Certain guardrails have to be in place, right? India has to be very diplomatic about this. See, we cannot afford to offend Donald Trump. We don't have to go and suck up to him, or like Donald Trump says, kiss his ass. India doesn't need to do that. But India should do everything possible not to offend the guy. And the best way to do it is to keep quiet. Stay out of this matter. We didn't start this. It doesn't involve us. It hurts us. So we'll do everything we can. We'll take actions to minimize the damage to our interests, but we will keep quiet about this. That is what India should do. India should not follow the advice of Madam Nirupama Menon Rao. This is what India has historically done under previous governments, and it's never ever served India's interests. It's always been harmful to India's interests. Nobody likes someone who lectures you. Yeah. So the world is being reshaped by those who can act. So India should take actions. India should act vigorously to preserve and safeguard its interests and to mitigate to whatever extent the damage that the war is causing to our interests. But there's no point lecturing Donald Trump and lecturing the world. That is super annoying. And for someone like Trump, it's even more annoying. So we should not do that. So I completely disagree with Madam Nirupama Menon Rao and her take about what India should be doing. Yeah. See, her style of diplomacy, it's outdated. Okay, it's now, it belongs to the time of to the era of the dinosaurs. Hopefully, as far as India is concerned, hopefully, India's diplomacy today is very different. It's nation first, national interest first, and we'll do whatever it takes to serve the national interest. And we don't lecture anybody anymore, right? When we are asked about our interest and why we behave in certain and we act in certain ways, we can explain that. And that's what our foreign minister has been doing, Dr. Jaishankar, for the past, I don't know, 6-7 years. Yeah, he's been doing about 5-6 years, 6+ years he's been doing that. And he's been doing a very good job of communicating our interests and our actions, the reasons for our actions to the world. And he's done a good job of that. So, and it will be very clear that Dr. Jaishankar has, or Prime Minister Modi has never lectured anybody as to how they should behave, what's right and what's wrong, and what is the morally correct thing to do. None of the nonsense we've done the past, I don't know, 10, 11 years. And that is the right approach. And that is what Madam Nirupama Menon Rao disagrees with, and I completely disagree with her. All right. All right. Now let's take some questions. What's going on in the world? Let's answer your questions. Ansh Divu says 1947 Balkanization of Bharat was primarily a geopolitical move, not a religious one. Agree or not? Can you please do an analysis of why it was strategic for the British to make the border specifically where they did? Look, Bharat was Balkanized in 1947. We know that, right? Now, was this a geopolitical move or a religious one? So, if you read Indian authors, Indian historians, etc., they will say India was divided on the basis of religion. It is religion that caused the Balkanization of India. That's what you all believe. But the truth is, religion was weaponized to achieve the Balkanization of India. Okay? So, see, for example, the Khilafat movement. The Khilafat movement, I suppose a lot of people, at least in previous generations before today, were under the impression that Khilafat meant Khilaf, means you're opposing the British. And it was Mr. Gandhi who mainstreamed the Khilafat movement, right? The Khilafat movement was started. What was it all about? Say in 1918, 1919, 1920, around that time, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the great Turkish dictator, the great man, he was in the process of abolishing the institution of the caliphate, the Khilafat. Okay? His objective was to make Turkey completely secular, completely democratic, and no Sharia law, no caliphate, no nothing. And the last Sultan of Turkey, Abdul Hamid, he was expelled from Turkey. He was exiled from Turkey by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. So this process was ongoing between 1918 to 1920 something, early 1920s, and the world began to sense that the institution of the caliphate would be ended by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. And that's why the various Muslims around the world wanted to protest that. So there was this movement that began in India as well, a fringe movement that nobody knew about. Excuse me. And it was Mr. Gandhi who mainstreamed this movement and urged every Indian to participate in the Khilafat movement. And most Indians, I suppose, imagined that this was a movement to protest the British occupation of India. But it was a movement to preserve the caliphate and to preserve Sharia law. And even later in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the way this was taught in India's history books, it was like this movement was about opposing the British. It was never explicitly spelled out that this was a movement in support of Sharia law and the institution of the caliphate. So, Mr. Gandhi, and the Khilafat movement failed, obviously. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk did indeed abolish the caliphate. It still stands abolished today, right? But this movement, the Khilafat movement, which Mr. Gandhi championed, what it did is that it became the precursor, the chemical precursor to the Pakistan movement. Okay? And the British knew that eventually, at some point in time, they will have to vacate India. They will have to leave India. But they wanted to leave India in a certain shape and form that would be beneficial and advantageous to their continuing geopolitical interests in this region, which is the subcontinent and beyond, which includes West Asia, okay, and also Central Asia and the Indian Ocean region. So the British had decided they would partition and balkanize India so that India doesn't remain unified, so that they have access, so that the Indian nation doesn't become great. It is denied access to Central Asia, and there will always be a mercenary garrison state, an artificial temporary nation called Pakistan or whatever it will be called, that will continue to serve British interests because the British will have caused its creation. So those who rule Pakistan will always be subservient to the British. It was structured in the manner, right? So what were these interests of the British? What were the interests? The interests, first of all, was first one interest was to ensure that India doesn't remain unified and become powerful and become quickly in 20, 30 years a challenger to the West, right? That was always a possibility. If someone like Subhash Bose had been the leader of India, and he would not have allowed a partition, then in 20, 30 years, India would have become a different kind of beast, right? Because he would not have applied the Nehruvian rate of growth of 3% per year. He would have done reforms that would have shot up India's economy, and the Indian economic growth rate would have been maybe 8, 10, 12% per year. When you are a destroyed economy, it's very easy to rapidly build it up, right? So they didn't want that. They did not want India to rise up again and become a challenger to the West, to British interests, because at the time Britain was the major superpower, right? Well, until the 1920s at least. But they still imagined that they were a major global power, the British. Secondly, they wanted um, something to counterbalance a broken India. Counterbalance India and always keep India off balance. That would be Pakistan, right? And Pakistan would also serve the purpose of denying India its historical access to Central Asia. In the past, our ancestors, whenever they had to go to Central Asia, they would just walk into Central Asia. It would take the process would take a month or two, but you could reach Central Asia just by walking or by going on horseback or whatever. So India historically had, for thousands of years, access to Central Asia. That was cut off for India. And then Pakistan could always, supply soldiers and supply a military, give military support to any British actions in West Asia, in the Gulf region. At the time, we do not have the UAE and all these nations. You had the crucial states. So the Gulf region was being reshaped at the time by the British and by the West, right? So all these things. So there were multiple interests that the British had, and these were geopolitical interests. The British wanted access to Central Asia through the subcontinent region, and Pakistan would provide that, right? So by so magnanimously allowing uh, the proponents of Pakistan to create an artificial nation, and by supporting that artificial nation through economic and other means, they ensure that it will always remain loyal to the West for a price. But that is fine. Everything comes at a price. So they weaponized religion. Okay, and the roots of this go back to the 19th century of weaponizing religion, non-Indian religions, right? That one religion was weaponized. The roots go back to the 19th century. And that's how this was done. So this was primarily, I agree with you, this was a geopolitical move, not a religious one, but it was done under the pretext of religion. The religion was weaponized, and that's how this was made to happen. Okay. The borders exactly, specifically, it's not like the borders exactly had to be the way they are specifically right now. The borders could have been whatever, could have been something else potentially. They wanted to give as much land as possible to Pakistan, even land that was not supposed to be part of Pakistan. That's why the British started the Kashmir issue. The first time the flag of Pakistan was raised in Jammu and Kashmir, it was done by British officers, under the command of British officers. So the British ensured that the Pakistanis, grabbed some pieces of Kashmir, and Mr. Nehru ensured that that remained with Pakistan, even though Mr. Patel wanted the Indian army to, take POJK back. So yeah, long story, but it was primarily a geopolitical move. But yeah, Indians see everything from a religious perspective, so Indians think of this as a religious matter. Aditya Acharya says, a little off topic, but if karma can't be scientifically proven, then why isn't it if karma can't be scientifically proven, then why isn't it marketed as something that one has to pay back in the same lifetime only? The world would be a much better place, out of fear at least. So you're saying that maybe it should be marketed as something that one has to pay back in the same lifetime only. Look, so I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but let me explain the way I see karma. Okay, the concept of karma has a very strong connection to the concept of rebirth, reincarnation. So what is karma? To put it very simplistically, the way a physicist would see things, karma is the law of conservation. It's a conservation law. In physics, we have the laws of conservation of physical quantities, law of conservation of energy, law of conservation of mass, law of conservation of momentum, and so on and so forth. Right? We have conservation laws in physics. Now, the law of karma is a conservation law, but it relates to something that is non-physical. The law of karma is the law of conservation of the merits and demerits of your actions over multiple lifetimes. That is the law of karma. Okay, so it's not a physical law. You could say it's a spiritual or religious or whatever it is. Yeah? It goes beyond physics for sure. It's non-physical. So that's what karma is. It's a law of conservation of the merits and demerits of your actions over multiple lifetimes. Now, in the West, they have these sayings like karma is a bitch and karma bites back and all that stuff, right? So when somebody is known to be a bad person and something bad happens to them, they say, that's karma in action. But that is not correct. Karma is something that operates over multiple lifetimes. So that's why, according to Indian philosophy and India's Indian culture, lots of people get away with very bad things in their lifetimes. You will see there are people who are really evil, really bad, and nothing bad happens to them. So the law of karma is that, you wait, let the guy die, let that person be reborn. We will never know where the person is going to be reborn, but they're going to experience the merits and demerits, both of their actions over multiple lifetimes. So that's what karma is. So that's how it operates. It's not supposed to operate in the same lifetime. It's supposed to operate over multiple lifetimes. So you may get away with very nasty stuff in one lifetime, but when you're reborn, you're going to pay for those actions. That is how it works, and that's how I see it. And I don't know how it can be marketed or not. I would say you can't distort what it is, right? None of these things can be proven scientifically, but you cannot distort the meanings of these concepts. You can't. Otherwise, you are doing exactly what the West keeps doing. They appropriate our culture and distort it out of shape. So I would highly recommend we don't do that. Okay. PP Singh says, I heard on a podcast a retired Indian Navy commander, after the sinking of the ship off Sri Lanka, say in tropical waters around India, submarines are near undetectable. Then why does the Indian Navy keep building them? So a retired Navy commander said that submarines are nearly undetectable, right? Isn't that a great thing? That if you have a submarine, nobody can detect it, or it's nearly undetectable, then doesn't it make sense for the Indian Navy to keep building more and more and more? These are very dangerous assets that operate unseen below the waters of the ocean, and it's almost impossible to detect them. So why should we not build 500 of those if we have the funds? The more the merrier. If they are undetectable, isn't it a good thing? Isn't it a valuable thing for the Navy? So doesn't it make sense that India will build more of those, will want to acquire more of those? Why does it perplex you, sir? And it's not like they're nearly undetectable only in tropical waters around India. They are undetectable in all kinds of waters. They are undetectable in Arctic and Antarctic waters, in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Pacific Ocean, in warm waters, in freezing waters. They are undetectable everywhere. They can be detected only when they're close to the surface, and then you have these magnetic anomaly detectors in certain aircraft that can potentially pick up signatures, magnetic signatures of submarines. And you can perhaps try to detect them through sonar and so on, but it's very, very hard to detect submarines. And that's why the Indian Navy seeks to have more of these. All right. Sergeant Skyland says, your thoughts on Drill India Drill. I am not aware of what that is, but I would imagine that it's about drilling for oil. Is that what it's about? So if it is that, then I would say it's a great thing. India needs to drill and look for oil and discover reserves of oil. India has been very lax in this matter. Yeah, so it's important for India to discover its own sovereign reserves, resources, petroleum and oil reserves, or gas as well. Sachdev Satyajit says, will try to occupy? What's UM? Will try to occupy Iran or parts of Iran, especially after AF? AF is Afghanistan. What's UM? I don't know what UM is. I suppose it's US. US. Will the US try to occupy Iran, parts of Iran, especially after Afghanistan? Looks like they may be in the process of planning an invasion. Looks like that. In my opinion, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult for them to make this happen, to successfully even hold on to some territory. Um, Attempting an invasion of Iran is nearly suicidal, in my opinion. But let's see. Looks like they're going to attempt this. Rushabh Pawar says central higher authorities taking emergency meetings as like COVID. So, as citizen, what steps should we take, or how worse will it be? See, the problem is the short potential impact on oil deliveries to India and gas deliveries to India, right? So that's what the government is trying to take steps to mitigate, to maybe some steps that will mitigate the effects of this, right? The deleterious and harmful effects of this on our nation. So what steps can we take, or should we take as citizens? Well, don't waste energy, right? It's summertime, so obviously you're going to need ACs. I can't tell you all to not use ACs, but and when it comes to cooking gas and cooking all of that, see, don't take trips you don't need. So that will ensure that you're not wasting petrol, diesel, whatever, right? Stay in your home. If you have a car, if you have a vehicle, use it only when required. Don't go for joyrides. Cut down on that. If you're cooking, don't overcook. Don't waste gas if you're using LPG or whatever gas. So these are small things citizens can do, and hopefully it makes a difference. Beyond that, what can citizens do? Nothing much. Nothing beyond that, I suppose, right? Individually, we can ensure that we don't waste energy. That's what we can do. Beyond that, there's nothing citizen can do, and the government needs to take care of the rest. YT Beyond Border says India could help Iran now for breaking Pakistan later. See, I know that we in India are very, very focused on Pakistan. We are laser focused on Pakistan. But Iran is not going to help India achieve its objectives right now. See, Iran is fighting for its survival. Okay. Now, if India helps Iran, do you understand the consequences of that? Do you understand the consequences, sir? What happens is any nation that helps Iran is going to be automatically seen as an enemy, as an adversary by the United States. Now, do you want the US to categorize India as an enemy? They will not simply put a tag on India as an enemy, they will take actions against India. We want access to American markets. We want American goodwill. Okay? And that's why India should remain neutral in this matter. Oh, Pakistan break ho jayega, let's go and help Iran. It doesn't work like that. And even if we help Iran, for example, how does it break Pakistan? How? And don't you think that our military resources, like missiles, arms, ammunition, drones, whatever we have, don't you think we need to conserve those so that in case the Chinese do some mischief, we can deal with them? Don't you think that these are things that we have to conserve? Right? So it doesn't make sense for India to get involved in this matter, the war against Iran, or the war, or on whatever side. India should remain completely neutral. All right. Alka Shikari says, what happens to gases, ice, water vapors left behind by a comet in outer space? What happens to these things? They become more and more diffuse over time. So let's say you have a comet. Okay. A comet. What is a comet? A comet consists of multiple things. There is rock, there is ice, and there is dust. So it's a comet is like, in case you know what snow is like, it's like a dirty snowball. Not a white snowball, but a brown or black snowball. Dirty snowball. That's what a comet is like. Some comets are rocky, but they have a lot of ice in them. Some comets are mostly ice. So typically, a comet is a rocky core, a core which is rocky, and around it, it's got ice and all that. So a comet typically originates in the Oort cloud, which is way, way beyond what we see of the solar system. Okay, but sometimes because of some, you know, collisions, or maybe because of some object that tugs it gravitationally, sometimes these dirty snowballs, they get pulled into a different orbit, which then takes them near the sun. Okay, it's typically an elliptical orbit, long elliptical orbit. Some comets, they come once in a million years. Some comets come every 76 years, like Halley's comet, and so on. Some comets are short period comets. Every few years, like 5-10 years, they come right near the sun. So when a comet comes near the sun, when it starts approaching the sun and comes close, it's close enough for the sun's heat to start affecting it. That's when the ice starts melting, and it starts shooting out dust into space. And that's how, when the comet comes near the sun, it starts developing this tail, this glowing tail. The tail is mostly water vapor and dust. Okay, so that's how, and a comet will then go around the sun, okay, and then go back. And once it starts going back, it starts getting colder, and it stops having the tail. So it's a fleeting phenomenon. It lasts a few days, a few weeks, right? A few months sometimes. So what happens to the ice, gas, water vapor? It all disperses in space, and it becomes eventually part of the vacuum. So it just disperses, right? It stays there in space. So eventually the water molecules, so let's say it's water molecules, H2O molecules, right? So eventually they'll start dispersing, and the mean distance between any two water molecules, it keeps increasing until it's like they're essentially isolated. That's what happens. They disperse and diffuse away. Rushabh Pawar says the US playing on more than one front. At Cuba, Russian aid gets attacked. Eventually, its ports by Ukraine. US playing on more than one front. At Cuba, Russian aid gets attacked. Eventually, its ports by Ukraine. She pledged for Taiwan 2027. Iran war month, world war. What is the question? Russian aid gets attacked. Eventually, it's okay. So, are you saying that there have been attacks on Russian aid in Cuba? I know that Russia is being attacked in its ports by Ukraine. We know that. She pledged for Taiwan 2027. Well, that's a rumor that we have. We don't have confirmation of that, but it looks like potentially she may have, President Xi of China may have given a deadline of 2027 to his armed forces for taking Taiwan, which is next year. Yep. Yeah, okay, there is that. Cuba is being blockaded by the United States. Cuba is being deprived of power. Okay. So Cuba is a nation that doesn't produce oil, so they need to import oil from wherever. Venezuela, Russia, whatever. The Americans are blockading Cuba and preventing anyone from delivering oil to Cuba. Okay? Whether it is processed or refined or unprocessed, whatever. And that's why Cuba is now facing power shortages. There was this hospital in Cuba that went dark, and apparently everybody who was in the ICU died, who was on oxygen. Babies, elderly people, whatever. So that's what's going on, and maybe the Americans are planning to invade Cuba sometime in the future, sometime perhaps near future. I don't know. We'll see. Ukraine is attacking Russian ports. I discussed that in detail multiple times. She's pledged on Taiwan. That's a rumor. We don't know about that, whether it's true or not, but we'll see. Iran war month, world war. I don't know what it means. The question you may be asking is this going to lead to a world war? I hope not. But if there's an American invasion of Iran, I think China and Russia may get more involved than what they are right now. And that could lead to a situation where this escalates and more nations get dragged in. If a hypothetical American invasion of Iran doesn't go well, okay, then they may force NATO nations to get involved, and that could then, we could start considering this to be a world war. So I hope it doesn't happen, but it could happen. It could happen. Yashwant Prakash, thank you very much, Yashwant Prakash. Aiden Trustler says, we elected a clown, he made the world a circus. It is. I can't. It's hard to disagree with what you're saying. Yeah, unfortunate for the entire world. Okay, A. Rahul says, how to learn French or German for masters abroad. I don't know how to learn French or German. I mean, the best way to learn a new language is by immersing yourself in that 24 hours by 7. Yeah, you do that for a couple of weeks where all you do is you communicate in that language. So that is the fastest way to learn a language. Yeah, but I suppose there are courses and apps and whatnot. There's Duolingo that you can download on your phone. I don't know if it's a paid app or not, but there are apps that are available that will teach you other languages. There are courses available. We have what? We have these platforms called Coursera, Skillshare, whatever, on which you will have courses for various languages. So I don't know how to learn languages. I speak non-Indian languages. I speak French, right? How did I learn? I was a kid. I don't even know how I learned. I was immersed in a French-speaking environment. I suppose I just picked it up within 3 months. I was speaking French within 3 months. So I did not ever go to French classes or whatever. One day I discovered I'm just speaking French. Yeah. So that's how I learned. So I don't know how to learn a language formally. You don't start by learning grammar, grammatical rules and all that. The best way is to immerse yourself. Try and start communicating as quickly as possible. Learn the first, the most important 100, 200 words. Learn basic-ish grammar, and start communicating in broken German, broken French, whatever. So see, how do you learn how to ride a bicycle? You don't study the mechanics and physics of bicycles, right? You sit on a bicycle and somebody pushes you and somebody steadies you, and you do that for a few hours, and eventually you find that you're balancing yourself, right? So and you fall a few times. You get hurt a few times, right? That's how you learn to ride a bicycle. The same thing goes for languages. You don't learn by studying the language. You learn by doing, by speaking the language, and eventually start writing. Yeah. So okay. IPK Vanes says Major Digvijay on Twitter said things about you. I'm sad. Who cares? Who cares? Somebody said something about me. Who cares? Why are you sad? I'm not sad. Don't be so. I would recommend to everybody, don't let words affect you. Someone said something nasty. Why does it hurt your feelings? Laugh it off. The problem, see, it's something that's routine for me. People take digs at me. People say nasty things about me on Twitter or in YouTube comments. And I suppose the objective is to lower my morale, make me feel bad. But those people don't know that I have very thick skin. It makes no difference to me what they think, what they say. I don't care one bit about what somebody thinks of me. I simply don't care. So let somebody Major Digvijay or whatever say whatever they want to say. I simply don't care. It makes no difference to me. It doesn't affect me at all. So please don't let it affect you. All right? Unless it is something, unless this gentleman is somebody you respect. In that case, well, what can I say? All right, so don't be sad. Okay. Yashwant Prakash, thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you. Varun Bajaj says, please use Grok for YouTube live streams research. It's the most truthful AI, far better than Google's. Yesterday, Google AI lied on the UN slave trade thing, but Grok did not. I tested. Grok, should I use Grok? So I don't use it for research, right? I simply Google something and Google has its AI. So for example, let's do this, right? Let's try this. It's an interesting thing you're saying. So let's test this out. So let's try the same thing on Google. So I am simply doing a Google search, but now the first result is always AI. How did India vote on the recent UN resolution about the transatlantic slave trade? Let's see. So now, okay, where is AI mode? Here we have it. So sometimes you have to go into AI mode. Sometimes it throws the AI stuff, summary at you without you asking for it. So I generally prefer not to use AI. I prefer to just search for things on Google itself, right? But yeah, AI is becoming ubiquitous today. AI is entering all spheres and all domains of everything. Facebook, The Guardian. So I actually prefer to do a Google search, but then Google throws its AI at me. So what is Grok like? I suppose I have to log into Grok and all. So actually, I don't trust AI summaries. I like to see news from a Google search. But thank you for the suggestion. I will look into how useful Grok is or not. I suppose you'll have to buy some kind of subscription, right? The free version of Grok won't be very useful, I'm pretty sure. How much does it cost? The cost is not an issue, but I'll look into it. I'll play around with Grok and see how useful it is. And okay, so thank you for the recommendation. I'll take you up on this. I'll look into Grok, how good or not Grok is. Polynomial says GATE 26 exam was compromised. Okay, statistically impossible scores and exam center clustering. GATE is for entrance to IITs for masters, PhDs, jobs in public sector units, ISRO, DRDO. Education and research not a priority for this government. I'm sad to hear this. I am not aware of this. Let me see what's happened. So let's see. GATE 2026 exam. I said exam, not exams, but okay. So it doesn't say anything about what happened. So this is the Google AI summary, right? I am looking for this stuff here, but it gives you a summary without you asking for it. Okay. Problems. This is controversy. Okay, controversy. Technical glitches, suspected cheating incident, shift towards complex application-based questions over direct formulas. Let's see, controversy. Controversy. Or like you're saying, compromised. What happened? Significant allegations and controversies surrounding the integrity of the GATE 2026 exam. Conducted by IIT Guwahati, allegedly. Okay. Potential compromises, allegations of cheating, compromised centers. Some top ranks belong to individuals with no clear documented history of high-level preparation of coaching. Haryana module allegation, whatever that is, demand for action. Data science and AI focus. Okay. Unfair AI-driven practices. So I don't know exactly what the deal is, but this is nothing new for the Indian education system. It's a rotten third-grade education system. I promise you that Iran has a better education system than India, way better than India's education system. And some individuals in India imagine that this is how India will become a Vishwaguru, with having a third-rate education system like this, right? So what can I say? It's just sad, the situation, the state of the education system. And there is no plan for improving things, because there's already this new education policy 2020 or whatever that is, that is in the process of being implemented, and the government claims this is going to solve all our problems. It's not going to solve any problem, and this will be implemented by, I don't know, 2030. Let's ask the Google AI what it says. Okay, by when will the new education policy 2020 be implemented in India? What's it say? By 2030, 2040. So next 20 years, they will slowly implement this thing. And it is not the right solution. So it means that no new solution will be looked for until 2030, 2040. That's it. We are cooked. We are cooked. I will recommend those of you who can, for education, please go abroad. India's education system is rotten. Rotten. Very sad, very unfortunate. And I promise you that Iran has a far better education system than India. You think of Iran as this poor, miserable, little broken nation. It's got a far better education system than India. It produces world class talent. Yeah. Okay, Chetan says civil war in India after 80, 90 years, and why? I am not talking about this. End of civilization when? No, no, no. I don't want any civil war. I have never said there's going to be a civil war in India, right? After 80, 90 years, and why? No, end of Indian civilization. Look, the way things are going, India is becoming more and more deracinated, right? The education system is a very major factor in this, in deracinating Indians. Today, Indians don't even know what their culture is. You deracinate multiple generations over, one after the other, then people become more and more detached from their culture. Because 20 years ago, 25 years ago, years ago, your parents also went through this rotten education system. They also spent hours every day imbibing knowledge from compromised teachers and compromised textbooks. And our textbooks and our teachers don't teach you about your culture, about our culture. So your parents were detached from Indian culture to a certain extent. Now they raised you, and they're already detached from culture. To, let's say 30% detached. You will be detached from your culture, maybe 50%. There's going to be more, right? Then your kids will be detached from the Indian culture by 70%. Eventually, after 5, 6 generations more, Indians will know nothing about their culture. They will think of Indian culture as the same way they think of Egyptian culture or Greek culture or Roman culture. That's what the Indian education system is designed to do generation after generation. So yeah, in 50 years, 100 years, you may no longer have anything called Indian civilization. By that time, India probably, you know, will have converted to some foreign religions. Most of the Indians, it's already happening. Large scale, industrial scale demographic re-engineering projects are going on in India, right? As part of Indian democracy, apparently. A civil war, I don't know about that, but yeah, okay. Ved says, interesting numbers. US total Senates 100. You mean senators 100. 9 are Jewish, 85 are Christian, yet pro Israel votes 85% plus. AIPAC backed 361 out of 468 candidates in 2024. How many senators do you have in the US? How many senators do you have in the US? It's 100. Okay, so there are 100 senators in the United States Senate. So each state throws up 2 senators. Okay. So I will not ask the Google AI to look into the religious demographics and pro-Israel votes because that will be controversial for the AI. It will flag me, so let's not do that. But interesting. So AIPAC backed 361 out of 468 candidates in 2024. So the majority of candidates, whichever way, were backed by this thing called AIPAC. What is AIPAC? Once again, let's find out. AIPAC. What is that? American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It's a bipartisan lobbying group, so it doesn't matter whether it's Republicans or Democrats that they're supporting. Bipartisan, influential American US lobbying group that advocates for strong US Israel relations. Founded in 1954, it works to secure US security assistance, promote diplomatic ties, and influence federal elections to elect pro Israel candidates from both parties. So when you have a lobbying group that works to influence federal elections and it has strong ties to a foreign nation, would you not consider that to be foreign interference in your electoral process? Or maybe not. Maybe I'm too stupid to see it that way. Or maybe I'm stupid to see it that way. But I don't know what it is. So if you had a lobbying group in India with very strong connections to a foreign country, and their job was to influence elections in India, I would see it as interference in my nation's internal affairs. That's logic, right? Yeah, okay, so interesting indeed. uh Harsh Raj says, do you have any part-time job for students? No, I don't. um I do not have a part-time job for students. Yeah, I can't think of anything. If I need something, I will post it um, on the community posts page. But right now, I don't have any part-time job for anybody. Yeah. Okay. Dheeraj says karma is a FIFO Q. CS, first in first out Q. Computer science concept. Okay, first in first out Q. Is it like that? Could be, perhaps. I'll have to think about that. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, first in first out Q. Or is it the cumulative merits and demerits of your actions? Or does it follow a sequential order? I'm not sure about that, but it's a really interesting way of looking at things. Yeah. Okay, JRXNA says some countries have only a few weeks of oil left. Now that a ground invasion is likely, won't this delay Hormuz opening? How will these countries react? And can they join the war without oil reserves? Yes. So, see, Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, is controlled by Iran now. They have never closed the Strait of Hormuz in the past. Never once. This is the first time in history that the Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz. And it's not closed completely, it's closed to some nations. For shipments of oil that are destined for India, it's open, right? For shipments of oil destined for, or is it completely closed right now? Let me see. Has Iran completely closed the Strait of Hormuz as of right now? It is effectively closed to most international shipping, uh, so forcing a 95% drop in traffic. Or is this propaganda from the West? Um, Iran is allowing select non-allied vessels passage, reportedly charging some for for safe transit. They have instituted a toll booth or shakedown system. Oh, very nasty word to use, shakedown. What is Suez? Isn't that also a shakedown system? What is Panama? Isn't that a shakedown system? So they're charging a toll. It's a toll. It's not shakedown. So they're allowing some Asian flagged Chinese and Indian tankers to pass while blocking vessels linked to the US or Israel. Okay, so so the Google AI is claiming that this strait is about 95% closed, and some vessels are being allowed to transit if they pay a toll. That's mainly Chinese and Indian vessels, apparently. So that's the situation. Now, some countries, obviously, they're going to have just a few weeks of oil left, um, and those countries could import oil from Russia. But the Ukrainians are in the process of destroying Russia's oil export capabilities. Hmm? Ukraine, well, it's at war with Russia, so you can't say it's doing something that's very nasty, but the timing is obviously impeccable, right? The timing is it's coinciding with what's happening in Hormuz. And Ukraine takes orders from the US. So that's what's happening. So yeah, it's gonna cause a big oil crisis worldwide. And then what will happen is that the world will have to buy oil from the US. Can the US supply the world with oil? We'll have to see about that. So a ground invasion seems to be likely now, like you say, correct. And will this not delay the opening of the Strait of Hormuz? It certainly will delay the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Absolutely. So, how will these countries react? These countries will have to find some way. I think they will have to import oil from the US, right? And can they join the war without oil reserves? You can't fight a war if you are short on fuel, right? And it's not like Venezuela wants to join the war. It's not like Argentina wants to join the war. It's not like South Africa wants to join the war. Nobody wants to join this war unless they are forced into it by the Americans, right? So these nations will have to look for alternative sources of oil. I suppose the Americans are a major oil producer. Um, which are the major oil producing nations? Let's find out. Um Top 10 oil producing nations. So the US, Saudi Arabia, the US has the top position because of its high shale oil production. Next is Saudi Arabia, then you have Russia, Canada, China, and so on and so forth. Okay, Iraq, UAE, Brazil, Iran, Kuwait. Okay, Um, so you can't join a war if you are short on fuel. And anyway, most of the nations, they don't want to join this war. Yeah. So they will have to buy oil maybe from the US if the US is capable of supplying them with oil. Yashwant Prakash says retired bodybuilder for India. Okay, retired bodybuilder from India. Big fan. You help my students. You're very welcome indeed, Yashwantji. Let me Google you. Let's see. Yashwant Prakash, retired bodybuilder. Oh, you're from the UK, are you? Okay, 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 okay. Fantastic. Let's see. That is Mr. Yashwant Prakash. Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you so much for being a viewer, sir. Thank you so much for being a viewer. And you are very welcome indeed. Ved says, Mearsheimer argued that deep state, deep state, deep state was against the Iran war. Obama hated Netanyahu, yes. Biden, Trump won, were cautious. Witkoff Kushner lobby convinced Trump for this blunder. Well, that's a theory. Now, we don't know what really happened, but it could be a plausible theory. Witkoff and Kushner, the lobby, the Israel lobby, they convinced Trump to launch this war on Iran. Well, I think that's a plausible theory. Logically, if it can make sense, yeah. But is that what really happened? We don't know about that. I mean, at least I don't know what really happened. So it's a good theoretical framework to understand what could have caused the war. I think it's a good logically sound theory. But I don't know if it's true. There are other theories as well that you know could also make sense. But okay, yeah, right. And John Mearsheimer is the author of a book about the Israel lobby in the US. So if he has authored that book about the Israel lobby in the US, he's gonna put forth theories that are in line with the premise of his book. So yeah, makes sense. Kitse says EU quietly aids US attacks on Iran, impact on EU. See, we know that there is at least one British Air Force base that's being used by the US uh, to launch strikes on Iran, or at least it's part of the chain. The chain of it's part of the chain of strikes. About the EU, I suppose the EU is also possibly involved in some way or the other, so some shape or form. But it's if EU nations are indeed helping, in that case they are doing it quietly, like you say, quietly aids. So if it's done quietly, it's not very obvious. Then I suppose there will be no immediate impact on these nations. If the aid they are providing to the US is very open, very blatant, and its effects are directly, visible, then I suppose Iran could take some action against those nations. See, Iran has missiles that can reach almost all parts of the EU. So Iran potentially could take some action if they decide to. But right now, it doesn't look like there'll be any significant impact on the EU at this point in time or in the foreseeable near future. Near future. Aaron Tressler says, US being so powerful, why lost war in Vietnam, Afghanistan, etc.? Okay. See, the Vietnamese understood how to fight the Americans, right? The Americans were far from their territory. And they like George W. Bush would say, they misunderestimated the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese knew their terrain, they knew their climate, they were great at jungle warfare, they were adept at Mao's people's war tactics, and they were determined. They were fighting for the existence and survival of their homeland. The American soldiers were fighting because somebody told them to fight. So it was also a question of motivation and determination, right? And the Vietnamese, so because of these factors and because of the excellence of Vietnam's guerrilla tactics, etc., that's why they won the war, and the Americans eventually had to limp away from Vietnam. When it comes to Afghanistan, Afghanistan is a very mountainous country. And the Afghan resistance fighters, they simply outlasted the US. And the US did not really want, it looks like, to fully occupy and govern Afghanistan. The best of times, the Americans were in actual control of only a small portion of Afghanistan's territory. And in various other parts of Afghanistan, it was various resistance groups that were in control of the territory. The Americans tried their best to defeat the resistance fighters, whether it is the Taliban, whether it is other mujahideens. But because of the terrain and because of various limitations and constraints, the Americans were never able to do this. You would need an invasion force of hundreds of thousands of soldiers to effectively take control of the entirety of Afghanistan. So it simply would not work, right? So because of these limitations, the Americans lost these wars. I suspect the American objective was in Afghanistan was never to really take over the whole of Afghanistan and administer it. The objective was more of money laundering and making money for the military industrial complex, the big companies. Yeah, that's actually what the most likely objective of the Afghanistan war was, the occupation of Afghanistan for 20 years. So eventually the Americans ended up replacing the Taliban with the Taliban, right? So it's not enough to be powerful. You have to be determined. You have to know what your military objectives are. You need to be very clear about the military objectives. And if your objective is to take control of an entire nation, you have to put in the resources for that. You have to be prepared to go all in on that. Not like I'll try something. If it doesn't work out, I'll send a few more soldiers. If that doesn't work, I'll send another 10,000 soldiers and keep sending more and more over time gradually. You have to go all in from the beginning. And you can never, ever underestimate your opponent. So the US obviously is a nation that suffers from hubris. And that's why the last time the Americans won a war on their own single-handedly was in 1898. The Spanish-American War. That's the last time the Americans won a war on their own. Okay. Aaron says, would we have survived without the partition with a third of the population being Muslim? How could we implement no Sharia law like what Turkey did? All it would take, of course we could have survived without a partition with a third of the population being Muslim. Of course we could have. Right now in India, what's the population of Muslims? Maybe 20%. The last census was done in 2011, right? Let's see. What percentage of India's population is Muslim as per the 2011 census? So per 2011, it was 14 or 14%. So today it's 2026. It's been 15 years since the last census. I have no idea why the government has not done a census. I understand there was the coronavirus pandemic, but that ended long ago. I have no idea why the government has not done a census. So in 15 years, I suppose the Muslim population may be close to 20%. With all the tens of millions of Bangladeshis in India, I'm sure the Muslim population is more than 20% in India. So we're doing fine with 20% Muslims. It's not like Muslims are problematic, right? It's not the case. Okay. So India would have done just fine without a partition, even with 33% of the population being Muslim. All we needed was the right leadership, strong leadership. If Subhash Chandra Bose was the leader of India, was the dictator of India, he would have tolerated no communal, no religious BS. He would have tolerated none of that. He would have crushed any such nonsense with an iron fist. Okay? Would have worked. Subhash Chandra Bose would never have tolerated partition, and he would never have tolerated communal divisions and religious divisions. They would have crushed it all. Of course, we would have survived without a partition. Om Naik says, your view on Yuga cycles, any scientific parallel? The Yuga cycles, Kali Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, etc. Is there any scientific parallel to that? Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I'm not aware of any scientific parallels to that. Kaustubh Chobe, thank you very much, Sarji. Thank you very much. Ansh Divu says, 1947 Balkanization follow-up. What was the geopolitical significance of cutting off Burma and Bangladesh? See, 1947, it was not Bangladesh. It was East Pakistan, right? So the objective was to give away as much of the subcontinent's territory to a non-Indian nation, as much of it as possible. See, Bangladesh, it's obviously historically part of Bengal. It's a very resource-rich region, right? The Ganga River flows through this region and flows into the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, that subset of the Indian Ocean, and all the alluvial deposits of the Ganga River, they make this region incredibly fertile. The Ganga Delta, right? They call it the Padma in the region, but yeah. So it was very significantly, resource rich, this region. So cut off that region from India and create this far east region that you call the northeast, but don't give it access to the ocean by cutting off by giving Chittagong to Burma, to Bangladesh, or to East Pakistan. Sorry, and Burma. The objective was to make India small, right? Burma was this big, big. If you look at the map, we haven't opened the map today, have we? That's terrible. Let's open the map. So Burma is a huge territory. Again, very resource rich. Very resource rich. And Burma was cut away from India in 1935. Myanmar. It's a huge, huge country. Very large. Okay. And as you can see, it has a very large border with China, and it's part of Southeast Asia. So India would have, Indian territory would have been in Southeast Asia as well if Burma had remained part of India. And it goes all the way down south. So we would have been neighbors with Thailand, with Laos, and with China. Thailand, Laos, and China. We would have been neighbors with these countries directly. Right now, Thailand is a maritime neighbor of India. See, as you know, we have Phuket. Phuket is about 1,000 kilometers, roughly, I would say, from Indian territory. Roughly 1,000 kilometers. Let's see here. Okay, it's 500 something kilometers from Indian territory. So Thailand is a maritime neighbor of India. Indonesia is also a maritime neighbor of India. We don't realize that. Okay. So this huge territory was carved away from India in 1935. There was an election in Burma, and Burma had voted to remain part of India. But the British still, nevertheless, disregarded the sentiments of the Burmese people and carved Burma out of India. Right? So the geopolitical significance is to weaken India. If Burma was part of Indian territory, then we would have access to significant parts of Southeast Asia. We would have been neighbors with Laos and Thailand, and with more regions of China. And we would have access to all the resources that you have in Burma. So we have been cut off from that as well. So the objective was to of the Balkanization of in 1947. One objective was to ensure India remains weak. Okay, India is deprived of its historical access to these territories, like Southeast Asia, like Central Asia. Okay, and the second objective was to create this artificial, temporary, mercenary garrison state nation, Pakistan, East and West Pakistan, right? So that was what was it, and obviously they ensured that not only is India balkanized and East and West Pakistan created, and before that in 1935 Burma was chopped out of India, but in 1947 they ensured that their hand-picked individuals became the political elite of India, and they were handpicked in such a way for the purpose of keeping India weak, right? So they ensured that India doesn't start growing rapidly once the British leave. They ensured that the entire edifice, all the institutions the British had created, those continued intact. Then how have we acquired freedom if all the same laws and all the same institutions continue in place? We may have technically become free, but we never decolonized. Right? Right, okay. Vivek says, please help. My brother left school in the 10th standard despite good in social science, chess, poor at maths. Says the education system is garbage, wants to drive trucks in Australia. Okay. Um, I Is it a bad thing to drive trucks in Australia? I would say let every person decide what is best for them in their life. I'm wondering if is driving trucks in Australia a bad thing? If somebody likes that, drive around the outback and whatever. It's a nice adventurous life. I suppose the pay is good. I'm. I don't think it's a failure in life. And you can do that for 5 years, 10 years. Then you can go back to education and maybe become a chartered accountant or something, or maybe become government servant. Everything is possible in life. So I suspect I'm not giving you the help you're looking for. So what you could do, okay, so that's one option. The other option is, you know what, the education system is garbage. I agree. I'm responsible for making people aware of that. But what you could say to your brother is consider various options. Let's not jump the gun immediately. One option is you go to Australia, drive trucks. Okay. The other option is you spend some more years in the education system, and maybe if you have some other hopes and dreams, maybe getting a degree could help you achieve that. Um, that's also a possibility. So my point is, don't take a decision immediately. Spend, let's say, give yourself 4 weeks to decide and consider all the options. One option A is Australia, and you drive trucks in the outback. Option B is maybe you continue with the education system for another 5 years and acquire a degree. And maybe if you have some dream, some hope that you may actually that you wanted to become, let's say, an airline pilot, for example, or let's say you wanted to drive tanks in the Indian Army, or maybe you wanted to become a chartered accountant in India. So those options are also there, and there are other ways of reaching those options. So at the end of the day, it will depend on what your brother wants the most in his life, right? So I would say, see, sometimes you take decisions emotionally, right? Sometimes you want to go and beat up the guy you don't like. So what you're supposed to say is, okay, listen, we'll beat him, but let's beat him tomorrow, not right now. Sleep on it. So I would say, tell your brother to think about this for a while. Don't decide immediately. Take let's say a month to decide. Then you can still go and do what you want, but take a month to decide and consider all the options. So maybe that will help. All right, Vivek, all the best, and say hi to your brother. Anabil Sarkar says, I believe UM is big. What's the UM? I believe UM is a bigger enemy than China. Your thoughts? I suspect you're saying US. Well, as India's unofficial representative to the world, I will say that let's be diplomatic about this. The US, our relationship with the US is challenging. We allegedly have shared values with them, but clearly we don't have too many shared interests with them. And actually, if you look at the matter civilizationally, we have way more shared values with Chinese civilization than with the US empire, right? And China obviously is a real and present danger for India because of the way it has behaved since Mao Zedong took control of the country. 1949, right? Was it right? They have behaved as an imperialistic nation, as a they are very hegemonic, and they bully all their neighbors. That's why China is obviously a problem for India. But it's not like the US isn't like that. The US it takes that to the next level. The US is like 10 times China when it comes to its imperialistic practices, its regime, it's meddling in every country. So I would say both nations are major challenges for us. Which is larger, which is less large? I think the US is more of a challenge for India. Dheeraj Kamath says Google AI, Claude, and GPT are better than Grok. Okay, so Dheeraj Kamath is of the opinion that Google AI, Claude, and GPT are better than Grok. and I'm doing good by using. See, my objective, first of all, is never to use AI. I simply look. This is not the first episode of the Ask Abhijit show. This is the 344th episode of the Ask Abhijit show. I have been using Google as a search engine since episode one. Probably since episode one. I don't remember what happened in episode one, but from the beginning, I've been using Google to clarify things. And when I started the Ask Abhijit show, there was no AI, right? At least not that I knew of. But now, when I do the same Google searches that I was doing 4 years ago, now you have AI generated, synthesis of or summaries. So it's something that I've started using unwittingly. I have always been using Google search, not Google AI. AI then eventually started intruding into my Google searches. So I have become an unwitting user of Google AI during the Ask Abhijit show. It's never been my intention to do it, and clearly it's not always reliable, as we discovered yesterday very clearly when it was repeatedly lying about how India voted in that UN resolution about the transatlantic slave trade. The Google AI kept saying that India had abstained when actually India had voted in favor of the resolution. So clearly, AI is not necessarily going to be 100% reliable, and that's something we have to be very, very aware of. So I have become, unfortunately, an unwitting user of Google AI or whatever AI. My intention is never to use AI. My intention is to just do Google searches. But yeah, so you are saying that Google AI and Cloud and GPT are better than Grok. So I've used Google AI. GPT everyone has used. Grok I haven't really used much, so I don't know how good it may be. Elon Musk obviously will claim it's the best in the world, but hey. So okay. So my point is one has to be careful with AI. Don't ever, you know, take what AI says as the gospel truth. Very dangerous to do that. AI, can be misleading. Jitha Gada says, "What happened to your right eye? Are you okay? Did you cry or sad?" So this is my right eye. What happened to it? What happened? Let's take a closer look, shall we? Let's zoom in. So here's my right eye. What happened to it? I have no idea what happened to it. The right eye is completely fine. Completely fine. Did I cry? Am I sad? uh, and Golibar says, "See a doctor ASAP. Your right eye looks odd. Not sleeping." What? What happened to my right eye? I wonder, has something happened to it? Let's see. I think it looks fine. I don't see any problems. So as far as I'm concerned, I have not seen anything wrong with my right eye. It's I'm able to see just fine with it. Did you see something? Did you notice something? I even yesterday somebody asked me about my right eye. Am I turning into a werewolf or a vampire or something? I don't know. Look, I really appreciate the concern. I don't see anything wrong with my right eye. It's functioning perfectly fine. I am. Um, I didn't cry. I'm not sad. I am sleeping just fine. But yeah, after this show, this episode is over, I'll go and check it out in the mirror, and I'll have somebody check it for me. And if there is an issue, I'll get it addressed at the earliest. All right, thank you. Aaron says, Aaron, D nice, Aaron, Timothy. Yeah. Key and Peel, of course. So Aaron says, should we blame the illiterate politicians in power or bureaucrats for ruining our country? Awful education system, the system being corrupt as a whole. So it's a chicken and egg problem. What is the problem? Is it the system that's the problem, or is it the politicians and bureaucrats that's the problem? Because the system is made up of the politicians and bureaucrats. It's a self-perpetuating system cycle, isn't it? So look, this system was created by the British, and they deliberately designed it to be such that it oppresses the people. It would serve the British and at the same time, it would oppress the people. That's how they designed the system. They designed the corruption as a feature, not as a bug. Okay, it was designed into the system. It was a feature, not a bug. And after 1947, the system has continued exactly the same without anything being changed. Maybe IF, no, uh, ICS became IAS. So they changed some titles from the Indian Civil Services to the Indian Administrative Services. And some things gradually changed, but overall the system remained the same, right? So whatever features the British had introduced into the system, they had designed into the system, those still continue. And that's why the system only accepts certain kinds of people. The other kinds of people are shoved away. And even if you come in with the best of intentions, once you see how the system works, you have no choice but to become part of the system or move out. Okay, so somebody will have to. You can't reform this system. You have to dismantle the system and replace it with a new one. It's very hard to change the system from inside. It has to be changed from outside, and that's next to impossible in the current scheme of things. So, who do we blame for this? I would say the people who should be blamed primarily are those who, after 1947, did not change the system. They simply continued it. You blame them because they are deserving of the blame. And well, who else do you blame? The top leadership, I suppose, at various points in time in Indian history since 1947. Aniket says, why nose and ears never stop growing? Why do the nose and ears never stop growing? I don't know. I've never thought about that. I don't know. Okay. Secondly, your podcast with Major General Rajiv Narayan was great, and his insights, especially about Navik, were solacing. Okay, first of all, thank you about I'm glad that you like the podcast. Now, about Navik, I did not wish to argue with the general. Sorry, not. He said there are 8, 9 satellites and so on, right? That are functional, including LEO satellites, low Earth observational satellites, low Earth orbit satellites, LEO. See, if you want Navik to be functional, you need at least 4 functional satellites that are in geostationary orbit. Geostationary orbit is roughly 36,000 kilometers above the planet's surface. Let's fact check that, okay? I'm obviously saying this from memory. Maybe my memory is wrong. Let's ask Google. At what altitude are geostationary satellites positioned? 36,000 kilometers, roughly? Yeah, roughly 36,000 kilometers. Okay. So, geostation, for Navik to be operational, you need at least 4 functional satellites to be placed in geostationary orbits. Okay. Now, General Narayanan was saying that we have 8, 9 satellites that are functional. He was including low Earth orbit satellites. Low Earth orbit satellites cannot be part of Navik. Navik is a satellite positioning system. Low Earth orbit satellites are spy satellites. They will give you high resolution images of the Earth's surface and other data, high resolution data, from close to the Earth's surface. Low Earth orbit satellites are typically between around 200, 300 kilometers above the surface. Not 36,000 kilometers. Very close to the surface. The atmosphere ends at about, let's say, 100 kilometers. And these satellites are about 200 or 300 kilometers above the surface. So that's the 8, 9. See, total he is saying there are 8, 9 satellites, of which there are 3 Navik, which are still somewhat functional, and maybe 5, 6 low Earth orbit satellites. You put that together, it does not give you a functional Navik system. Our Navik system is no longer functional. It's not functional anymore. Okay, that is the truth. We have only, at most, 3 functional Navik satellites. At most, maybe even not 3. and that is not sufficient to give you satellite positioning data. So if you try to, you know, find your information, find your location, specific exact location, the coordinates using Navik with your phone right now, it's not going to give you an accurate fix on your location. It's not going to do that. Navik is no longer functional. Okay, we have messed up with Navik. Those other low Earth satellites, those are military spy satellites, and we don't talk about them. But they don't give you the positioning fix that Navik is supposed to give you. So the solace is not real solace. I did not want to argue with the esteemed General Narayanan. That's why I did not say anything after that. But Navik is not functional. It's not. Those spy satellites are a whole different matter. Okay, it's like comparing huge. It's like comparing those huge transport aircraft with the Tejas fighter jet. You can't compare. These are totally different roles. It's like comparing a helicopter with a submarine. There's no comparison, right? Right. Harshit Jain says, I don't think Kharg Island is the target because everyone knows it's 100% suicidal. Do you think all this drama is for something totally different that will catch all of us off guard? What can it be? So I discussed this yesterday. So I agree with you. Kharg Island doesn't seem to be the right target. Let's look at the map and understand why Kharg Island is suicidal. So where is Kharg Island? Okay, so here we are off the coast of Western India. Let's go westwards into the Gulf of Oman. Let's go into the Strait of Hormuz. Let's transition into the Persian Gulf. Let's go past Qatar. Let's go past Bushehr. Let's go close to Kuwait. And here we have Kharg Island. Okay, this one here. If you look at the satellite imagery, you will see it's got all these oil storage facilities and so on, right? Oil boulevard and oil storage facilities, etc. What is that? Fountain? Nestorian. What's it look like? Okay. So that's okay. So Kharg Island is about 35-ish kilometers from the coastline of Iran. 30-ish kilometers, right? Now, if the Americans try to take this island, they will have to send an amphibious assault vehicle, a ship of some kind, like the Tripoli, which will have to sail through the Strait of Hormuz. If it tries to sail through the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to be obliterated by Iranian drones and missiles. It is guaranteed to be completely destroyed. Guarantee, 100% guarantee. Because the Iranians have so many drones and missiles, the Americans simply won't be able to survive this. So the question is, if they try to come here, they'll be destroyed. Then how will they reach Kharg Island? They can't. Another option is they perhaps land somewhere in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, and then perhaps take helicopters to parachute over there or something. But even that is suicidal because the Iranians will shoot down their helicopters. Or maybe they take some boat or ship to reach there. How do they do it? So that's why reaching Kharg is almost impossible. And even if they are able to reach Kharg and they're able to take Kharg hypothetically, how long will they survive there? Because when you do an amphibious assault on a place, you come with maybe 1 day of water and food, not more per soldier. So how do you survive there? And if you take Kharg Island, won't the Iranians completely flatten the island with their missiles and drones? Nobody will survive. Which is why I agree with Harshit that Kharg cannot be the target. It's suicidal, 100% suicidal, guaranteed. So what could be the actual target in that case? If the USS Tripoli, like the Americans are claiming, has reached the CENTCOM area of operations, then it's somewhere here. It's somewhere here in the so-called Arabian Sea or the Gulf of Aden or the Red Sea. I don't know, the Gulf of Oman, somewhere. So I would say that it is more probable that they will try to make a move on Chabahar or Konarak. Konarak here or Chabahar here. Where is Chabahar? This is Chabahar. I think that's more likely, and they could even have support from Pakistan because the Pakistani border isn't really far away from Chabahar, right? 100 kilometers away is Pakistan. So the Americans could make a move on Chabahar potentially with support from Pakistan, which means Pakistan gets directly involved for the first time. That I think is more likely than the Americans trying to take Kharg in a suicidal operation. If they take Chabahar, they may be able to potentially sustain their occupation of Chabahar with Pakistani help, right? And then I suppose Trump could claim victory of some kind. I don't know, because even if they take Chabahar, they haven't defeated Iran. They haven't defeated Iran, but I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of empty, hollow victory that they want. So I think that Kharg Island seems to be out of the question. It's impossible to take, and it's suicidal to take, and it's suicidal to defend, right? So I think Chabahar makes more sense. And obviously the Iranians aren't stupid. They will be thinking along those lines too. They will be thinking of all potential scenarios of what the Americans could try to take and try to take and occupy from the Iranians. So I think it could be Chabahar. I think it could be Chabahar. Let's wait and watch. Okay, 24. Bharat says, the Rao lady is silly. Madame Nirupama Minan Rao. Okay. If India lectures the US will stop war. I mean, that's what she seems to imagine. Or maybe she thinks that whether the US stops the war or not, India should lecture the world and India should lecture the US. That way we absolve ourselves morally, that we have done our duty and lectured the Americans, because our duty is to lecture. That's what she seems to think. And that's what she is recommending, that we should lecture the Americans. Staying weak and verbal lectures are over. I completely agree with you. It's high time we move past that, and we have moved past that. Okay? Everything we do should advance our interests. Everything. Even if it is a statement, that statement should advance our interests. Don't do anything that doesn't serve our interests. So why should we make these moralizing lectures? Why? Right? So what you're saying is that only action, growth, and strength can defeat imperialism. Completely agree with you. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. Absolutely correct. Yes. Kiki Sushant says, thank you, sir. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You are very welcome, and thank you very much. Harshit Jain says, Trump has already said that Cuba is next. Do you think Russia will proactively protect Cuba more than it's helping Iran? No, I don't think so. Why do I say I don't think so? Why do I not think so? Well, ask yourselves, what did Russia do when the Americans took over Venezuela? They didn't physically take over Venezuela, but they kidnapped Maduro and installed a government which was already there, but they ensured that the government flipped and became pro-American, and now the government of Venezuela does whatever the Americans want them to do. So when the Americans did this regime change, de facto regime change, what did the Russians do? They did nothing, right? Russia did not do a thing to help Venezuela. Or did they? The Russians had supplied Venezuela with air defense systems. They had supplied Venezuela with potentially intelligence. The Russians had done whatever they could to help Venezuela. But Venezuela, the leadership, they decided that let's give up Maduro to the Americans, and then, let's become an American vassal. So Russia is physically very far away from Venezuela. Once again, let's go to the map and let's find out. Okay, so where is Venezuela? Venezuela is here. How far is it from Russia? Okay, let's try and calculate the distance from Russia. So Venezuela, we measure the distance to, let's say, here. That's about 10,000 kilometers. Russia is roughly 10,000 kilometers away from Venezuela. What can it do to help? It can't do much if the Americans invade. And similarly, Cuba must be about more than 10,000 kilometers. 1 second. For Cuba, how far is Russia? Let's go and measure the same distance. It's more than 10,000 kilometers. So Russia can't do much. Russia doesn't have any power projection capabilities in this region. Russia doesn't have any military bases in this region, right? So Russia can't do much to help them. That is the situation. So if Trump makes a move on Cuba, there's nothing the Russians can do to help Cuba. Cuba is a sitting duck right now. Okay, that is it. Okay, A. Rahul says, I have a promising transformer architecture improvement for top computer science conference like ICRL, ICML, NUR, IPS, but no GPUs to train or test it. Any suggestions? Well, what suggestions can I give you? You have to acquire GPUs. Can you hire GPUs? Can you? I'm not sure. I've never thought of this problem because I am not into this field. Can you? I mean, ideally, you should have your own GPUs, but can you rent GPUs by the hour or something? Is that possible? Let me ask Google. Can you rent GPU clusters by the hour? Let's see. Yes, you can rent GPU clusters and individual GPU instances by the hour. Numerous cloud providers offer on-demand, hourly, even per second billing for high-performance GPUs, allowing you to scale from a single card to large clusters for AI training and inference without long-term commitments. So multi-node clusters, you can rent multiple interconnected GPUs for distributed training workloads, scaling up to 10,000 plus 1,000 plus GPUs in some cases. Jarvis Labs offers NVIDIA A10, A100, and H100 GPUs starting from about 40 cents per hour to 269 per hour. And obviously, this is going to be expensive. The costs add up rapidly. Yeah, so I suppose you can rent GPUs, but the costs will add up very rapidly. You can buy GPUs. GPUs are very expensive. So if you are in a university or college, I suppose you could ask your department to acquire this in case they think that you should do sovereign AI research in India. Otherwise, you'll have to somehow find the funds to do it, right? That's all I can say. Yeah. So these are the problems Indian researchers face. Mainly the shortage of funds. So that's what I can say. If you are in a college department or university department, ask your department, request your department to supply you the funds, or to simply buy the hardware themselves, and then you can set it up and use it. And you can say it's not mine. It's gonna belong to the department, and you can do future research on that. That's one thing you do. Or otherwise, you find some source of funds and acquire it. All right, sir. All the best. Yeah, I understand how these constraints can be really problematic, but yeah. Okay, all the best, sir. All the best, Rahul. WYBKT says, is it safe to say that India cannot dismantle Pakistan until the US decides? Your opinion on Jeffrey Sachs. Also, even MAGA people are critical of the attack on the girls' school. Is it safe to say that India cannot dismantle Pakistan until the US agrees to this? Yeah. As long as the US gives its blessings to Pakistan, India can't do a thing. So India will be able to dismantle Pakistan only after the US loses interest in Pakistan, and if China doesn't come in and take over the role of the US. As long as there's a more powerful nation than India who's protecting Pakistan, we can't do much unless we want to risk a major war that could be against more than one nation. My opinion on Jeffrey Sachs. Who is Jeffrey Sachs? I'm not sure. Let me check out who is Jeffrey Sachs. I'm sure I know who it is, but let me see. Jeffrey Sachs. Yeah. American economist and public policy analyst, professor at Columbia University. I do recognize this gentleman's face. I am not aware of what he has been speaking about, so I don't have much of an opinion about him. What his positions are? Does he do geopolitical analysis, international affairs analysis, economic analysis? I'm not sure. I am not aware of what he has been saying, so I don't have much of an opinion about him. And even MAGA people are critical of the attack on girls' school. I think any decent human being will be critical of the horrific attack on the school, the girls' school in Iran. How many girls died? How many kids died? Definitely more than 100, more than 150. So any sane, decent human being will be critical of that. Nobody can support that sort of horrific atrocity. Hyphen says, if the US pressures India to align more strongly, can India realistically resist without economic or geopolitical consequences? I suppose we can. Right now, India is aligning away from the US. Not completely, but like we discussed yesterday, India has gone ahead with deals with Russia worth about cumulatively $25 billion. We're going to be purchasing drones, we're going to be purchasing missiles, we're going to be purchasing transport aircraft, we're going to be doing nuclear cooperation with the Russians and other things as well. And that's something that's, and of course, of S-400 systems, we're purchasing more of those. This is going to displease the US very, very greatly. Right? So we are clearly resisting American pressures. Clearly, we are resisting. The US is, of course, pressurizing India right now to align very strongly with them. The US wants India as a vassal state. It's very clear. They have made it very clear. And India is now taking various steps that essentially are taking India away from the alignment with the US and more of a, and more towards an alignment with Russia. At least some alignment with Russia, right? And more than what we have been doing in the past. And now we are also increasing our intake of Russian oil. And this is because, as a consequence of the past month of the Iran war, the US, its leverage over India has reduced. The standing, the stature of the US in the world has come down several notches, right? And India seems to have calculated that it now has more leverage than the US, or at least the balance is better now. Of course, there's going to be consequences. The US will take some steps eventually, maybe more tariffs, maybe something or the other. We'll see about that. Tariffs, sanctions, something. But of course, there's always a price you to pay for sovereignty when you are not the most powerful nation in the world. Yeah. Stick Life says, do you think that the US and Israel have achieved their key goal of stopping Iran from getting nuclear weapons? Thanks for the great content. Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. So the question really is, what was their key goal? What was the objective of the US and what was the objective of Israel in starting this war? The Americans say that our objective is the opening of the Strait of Hormuz and Iranian guarantees that they will not, develop nuclear weapons. Well, before the war started, the Strait of Hormuz was already open, and Iran already had committed to not developing nuclear weapons. So the US already had that, and they still started the war, and now they are saying that we want to achieve those things which already had. Iran had signed the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, in 2016 or whatever it was, 2015, 2016, around that time. And they had committed to not enriching uranium beyond 60% and whatever the commitments were. So and this was all verified by the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy, whatever it is, IAEA, International Atomic Energy Association or agency, right? Their inspectors had come and inspected all the Iranian facilities, and they found that Iran was complying with this. And even until February 2026, before the war began, Iran was not developing nuclear weapons. The supreme leader of Iran had imposed a fatwa against nuclear weapons. So Iran was definitely not developing nuclear weapons, and Iran had not closed the Strait of Hormuz. The Americans already had those conditions. Then they launched the war, and now they said that these are our goals. So why did you start the war? You already had those conditions. So I'm not sure what the objectives of the war for the US are right now. I have no idea. They don't seem to have clear objectives. The objectives have kept changing. For Israel, they want to do regime change. Nothing less than regime change will be sufficient for Netanyahu and for Israel. So Israel has not achieved its goal. And now it makes sense for Iran to develop nuclear weapons. It makes sense for Iran to develop nuclear weapons. That just makes sense logically. Because without that, there's no guarantee that, if even if the war ends at some point in time, it won't resume in a couple of years. So maybe the war ends hypothetically now. Okay? Let's say hypothetically the war ends now, and the US and Israel say, okay, we are done with the war. We will not fight anymore. Let's have a ceasefire. And all three sides say, okay, it's a ceasefire. What's going to prevent the Americans and Israelis from regrouping, taking a couple of years to rebuild their arsenal, and then attacking Iran again in 2 years? What's going to stop them from doing it? The only thing that can stop them is if Iran develops nuclear weapons. So I think now Iran will develop nuclear weapons, and they're not going to open the Strait of Hormuz anytime soon. So I don't think the Americans have achieved any of their military objectives. I don't think Israel has achieved its political objectives, military objectives. So yeah, I don't see this war ending anytime soon. Yeah, okay. 24 Bharat says major. No comments. No comments. Hey, listen, no comments. No comments. Okay, WYBKT says, did you saw tweet by somebody called Harsh Madhusudan whitewashing arrest of US and Ukrainian nationals, claims that even Great Britain interfered in the US civil war but later became allies? I have not seen this tweet, and yeah, I'm not aware of this. I will look into that later. And let's not call people names, okay? Let's be a little more dignified. What's the point of calling people names? Let's not do that. Please. Please, let's maintain decorum on this channel, all right? It's my request. Please. Okay. Okay. Or should I look into that? Later. I'll look into it later. Okay. 24 Bharat says, perplexity is better than grok. Sorry for making you angry yesterday. Was I angry yesterday? I may have been very briefly slightly annoyed, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. No issues. No issues whatsoever. So you were saying that perplexity is better than grok. I see. Perplexity. Perplexity is like a search engine on steroids, right? An AI enabled or something search engine. So, okay. So it's better. I look into perplexity also in that case. Do you all think that it's better that I search on an AI system for information rather than doing Google searches? Because Google searches anyway come with its own Google AI thing, right? I'll look into that. But anyway, thank you for the recommendation for perplexity. Better than grok. Interesting. I suppose grok searches X, right? Grok owns, Elon Musk owns Grok. He also owns X. So Grok, I suppose, is being trained on the massive volume of data that you have on X. And Grok will be aware of everything that's happening on X. So who's saying what? So I suppose Grok would be a good search engine for Twitter or X, but not necessarily for other things. But I suppose Perplexity is a global, general search engine, and it pulls up results from relevant parts of the internet and then summarizes them properly. So I think, yeah, that way Perplexity should be better. Interesting. Okay, WYBKT says, please see photo of E3 Sentry that allegedly got damaged. Well, I shall show you the photo. Yes, indeed. So where is that? Here we have it. Right. It's an AWACS system. AWACS aircraft. So here we have it. What is this? This is something else. Okay, so this is the AWACS, E3 AWACS, that was damaged. Damaged into quotes. Do you call this damage? It's been obliterated. It's been destroyed. The aircraft is in multiple pieces. And the most valuable part of the aircraft, which is the radome, is entirely obliterated. The radome is this big thing like a mushroom that's on top of the aircraft. It's a gigantic radar dome, right? And see, what's happened is that the Iranians have destroyed all the all the powerful radars the Americans have in the region. The THAAD radars, which are the terminal high altitude area defense radars, and other radars. These radars cost like close to $1 billion a piece. And there's only a few of these radars in the world. The Iranians have destroyed these radars. And that's why the Americans were using these AWACS aircraft to put radars in the air to ensure that they're still able to see what the Iranians are doing, what they're launching, and whatnot. So now three of these aircraft have been destroyed, or at least one of these aircraft have been destroyed. And the Americans only have 21 or so of these aircraft, right? And this is not damaged, this is obliterated. It's destroyed. And the like this tweet says, the Iranians have targeted the key rear housing surveillance radar, the big radome on top of the aircraft. So yeah. So the Iranians are doing a rather superior job than the Americans of targeting the enemy's um, assets and infrastructure. Okay. Naik says, can it be said that the US doesn't have any self-identity as a civilizational nation? Every person with leverage works for self-interest or foreign interest. The US is not a civilization. The US is an empire. You know what I say about Pakistan, right? Pakistan is an artificial temporary nation. What is the US? It's an artificial nation. It's a nation that's been constructed on stolen territory. It's a nation that is founded on genocide and slavery. The stolen territory belonged to the natives of the Americas. Okay? And to justify the theft of the territory, the Americans have invented their own history of the Americas. And in those histories, they portray the natives as savages. Savages with no culture, with no society, very backward, primitive people, which makes sense. That's why it makes sense to take over the nation and civilize the savages. So the US is an empire. It's not a civilization. What is American culture? Is there such a thing as American culture? Yeah. So, so the US, it's an empire. It's not a civilization. It doesn't really have a culture of its own, right? And it's a out and out capitalist nation. So, yeah, everybody works for their own self-interest. And some people, I suppose, potentially work for foreign interests. So I cannot disagree with what you're saying. I agree with you, Naik. I agree. Okay, Vijaya Patel says, your views on Sir Arthur Cotton and Andhras worship him. Sir Arthur Cotton. What is Arthur Cotton? Let me try and Google this. Arthur Cotton. Let's see. Sir Arthur Cotton. Oh, you mean Sir Arthur Cotton? Who is this fellow? He was a British Army officer and irrigation engineer who worked in the Madras presidency. And what did he do? He devoted his life to the construction of irrigation and navigation canals throughout British India. Well, if he did build canals and all that in India, well, he was constructing the infrastructure of the British occupation of India. Oh, sorry, did I not? Sorry. Okay. I need to put this on the screen. Okay, so this guy, Arthur Cotton, he was a British Army officer and irrigation engineer who worked in the Madras presidency. He devoted his life to the construction of irrigation and navigation canals throughout British India. So if he was constructing canals in British India, he was constructing the infrastructure of British occupation and extraction. The infrastructure he was constructing, its objective, what was it going to be used for? It was going to be used for the British occupation of India and the extraction of India's resources out of India. So that's what I can say. I don't know this person. I've not studied this person's life. I was not aware of his existence. And he's just another British occupier of India. Why do some people worship him if they do? I wonder. But that's the problem with India. Our textbooks glorify such people. Instead, they really did a great job for India. They served us. That's what we are taught. That's why our people unwittingly start worshipping them, some of them if possible, potentially. Okay. Aaron says, should we follow suit with China and abandon religion altogether instead of converting? No religion means no caste reservations, no religion hatred, and hopefully more development. I completely disagree with this. Why should we abandon our religion? Why? Why should we abandon our religion that our ancestors followed for like 10,000 or more years? Why? We should abandon caste reservations and religion. Our religion has never stopped anybody from developing. There is a phase of Indian history called the Saraswati Sindhu phase or the Indus Valley or Harappan phase, right? India was fully urbanized, fully industrialized at the time, and we were still Hindus. Our religion does not prevent us from developing. It is not anti-development. It is some other religions that are anti-development, by the way. Okay? We should abandon caste reservations. We should abandon caste. Okay? Not abandon our culture and our religion. Absolutely disagree with that. Absolutely disagree with that. Why should we make concessions? Why should we make compromises in our own land? Why? I don't get it. We should not. Vinod Vaibhav says, one day take a full history session, slides on Iranian history, 920 to 2026, covering structure and key figures like Soleimani, Ayatollahs, Larijani, Araghchi. Well, Soleimani, Larijani, Araghchi are very recent history. I mean, they are relevant today. Soleimani was assassinated a few years ago. Okay, you want me to do a whole thing on Iranian history? Well, the thing is that Iranian history doesn't start in 1920, right? But yeah, of course. Interesting recommendation, suggestion. Should I do that? Would people be interested in that? I suppose I could do that. It will take me some time to prepare that, but it's not a bad suggestion. Yeah, it's not a bad suggestion. Let me take a note of this. Let me take a screenshot of this suggestion by Vaibhav. Here we have it. And I'll save that. It's not a bad suggestion at all. Well, thank you, Vaibhav, for the suggestion. I will take this up. I am Durgesh says, ever let go of an opportunity to settle abroad? Why? Have I ever let go of an opportunity to settle abroad? I'm sure I have. Why? Because it felt like the right thing to do, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. Soldier Boy says, what's your take on FCRA? Did that please you? Yes, I am pleased. I'm pleased. It's good, yes. So we are strengthening, making the rules more stringent. Yeah. See, FCRA is the channel through which foreign funds flow into India. And there's a lot of misuse of FCRA. So the new FCRA rules are going to be more stringent, and they're going to have more conditions, and they hopefully that leads to improvements, and that sort of thing. So I think, yeah, overall I'm pleased. Yes. WYBKT says UA. Why is it always UA? It should be US, right? Oh, you're saying Ukraine. Oh, UA is Ukraine, is it? UA is Ukraine. It should be UK, right? No, it's UK is UK. It should be UKR or it could be UK, UA. Okay. So Ukraine had great industry like Antonov, but comedian messed it up. Yes. The Ukrainians had good industries, excellent industries, aircraft industries and other things. But today we have a comedian who's running the show. Very unfortunate for Ukraine. Yes. Noise says, ye gya Taylor Bronze G ki Pepsi ke pese. What are you talking about? I have no idea what this is about. Okay. 24 Bharat says, what is India's ideology? Is it socialist, secular, or integral humanism? NK has Juche. China has socialism with Chinese characteristics, or Confucianism. Ideology guides sovereignty. India's ideology, I don't know what it is. Really, I don't know what it is. I don't know what integral humanism is. I've not studied it, so I don't know what it is. Okay, but it definitely not is not India's ideology. India is more of a social. Even today, the policies are very socialistic, right? I think India's ideology is socialism and secularism. Yeah, like the constitution says, secular sovereign republic or that sort of thing, right? So if you see my Twitter account, have you seen my Twitter account? I'll show you in case some of you have not seen. So India's ideology is socialism and secularism today. So if you see my Twitter account, if you see the biography, it says that I'm neither secular nor socialist. So that's me, just yeah. But yeah, India's ideology is socialism and secularism, and that is what it guides. It determines the long-term future of the nation, doesn't it? It does. And what should our ideology actually be? It should be dharma. That's what it should be. But we are secular and socialist. That's sad and unfortunate, because neither secularism nor socialism is Indian. It's all foreign. Sad. Anand Bhatt says, my wife says I can listen to you for 3 hours with full attention, but not her, but not her for 3 minutes. Sending this message based on her advice. Big fan. Thank you very much for being a big fan, and thank you very much for being able to listen to me for 3 hours. And please give my regards to your wife. Please give my regards to her. Thank you so much. And thank you for making me laugh. Thank you to your wife for making me laugh. Please give her my regards. Hyphen says, does India benefit more from a stable West Asia or from a weakened, divided region where no single power dominates? Also miss the science streams. Thanks. Okay. Science streams. Well, nobody watches those science streams, sadly. It's like 150 people watching at most. So, okay. So coming to the question, does India benefit from a stable West Asia or from a divided, weakened region? I think we benefit from a stable West Asia. The West Asian nations mostly are friendly to us, and we are big customers of their main product, which is oil. So it's a win-win, the relationship for us as well as for them. So we benefit from a stable West Asia. We would like the region to be stable and peaceful. Okay, we don't want war in the region. It messes things up for us. We want Iran and the Gulf nations to all be friendly with each other and peaceful. That's what India benefits from. Yeah, a weakened, divided region where no single power dominates. If you have a weakened, divided region where no single regional power dominates, what will happen is that a non-regional power will dominate, and that has been the situation. That's been the case for decades. The region is divided. It is divided, and the US dominates the region. The region is divided how? You had Iran versus Iraq in the past. You have Israel that many nations oppose in the region. And then you have various rivalries between the other nations as well. So you keep the region divided so that a foreign power can actually dominate, which is the US. And that's what you had for the longest time. So what we would like to have is no foreign power dominates the region. There is a balance of power in the region and peace and stability. That is the ideal situation, which means for India, what's ideal? This war ends, the Americans withdraw, and then there is peace in the region. That is ideal for us. 24 Bharat says Siddhant Sibal is a great X account for Indian news. Yes, he is. I follow him. Yes, he's a great X account. He's like, he knows sleeves, doesn't he? And you get the latest updates from him. Like, yeah. So he's a great account for news related to India. I agree with you. 24 Bharat says Indians complaining about missing Chinese officials is amusing. We should be doing the same, idiots, and purging corruption and firing corrupt babus and officials. So if Chinese officials are missing, it means they have been purged. right? And they in China, officials are typically purged if they go against the nation or if they are corrupt. And it's not something amusing. It's not something to make fun of China for. You should respect China for doing that, for cracking down on anti-national activities and cracking down on corruption. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, and ideally, India should also do that. India should crack down on anti-national activities and on corruption, just like China. I completely agree with you. But that's not what happens. It doesn't happen in India, doesn't it? Sadly. Okay, Dheeraj Kamath says Bobby Eapen is taunting dharmic people in the chat, trying to intimidate us, insinuating that Christianity is dominant and we should be afraid. Bobby Eapen is a long time viewer of this channel, and even yesterday people were complaining about him. I find this very unfortunate that we have this disruptive behavior in this channel. So I'm going to have to take some action about this, sadly. Okay. Well, Dheeraj Kamath, thank you so much for bringing this to my notice. Thank you. Valiant Prince says, if Persians and the Alina Greek clan were both among other clans defeated by King Sudas, should the Greeks also be considered Arya like us and Persians? See, Arya, from our perspective, from an Indian dharmic perspective, the word Arya means civilized. Arya, whether you're Arya or not, is determined by your conduct, by your behavior, not by your blood, not by your ethnicity. Okay? But today, Indians imagine that Aryan means an ethnic thing. And white people are Aryans. That's what we have been taught, right? Arya means civilized. You're Arya or not based on your behavior and your comportment, your conduct. But if you want to give Arya the word Arya or Aryan a racial meaning, like the Persians did later on, then who would be the Arya? It would be us and the Persians, not the Greeks. Because the Greeks, they went into Europe and they intermarried, I suppose, with the Europeans, and they became whiter, didn't they? So look, if you look at whiteness, then Indians, we are brown. Persians are somewhat lighter skinned than us today because the Turks brought in lots of foreigners and settled them into Persia. But 2000 years ago, the Persians looked like people from Western India, light brown skin, etc. But the Greeks, they went into Europe and they intermixed with the Europeans. That's why they became whiter than the Persians. And so that's why they would not be considered to be fully pure blood Aryas like Indians and Persians. But from the proper meaning of the word Arya, okay, if you eat beef, you're no longer Arya. If you no longer practice Vedic rituals, you're no longer Arya. And the Persians did practice Vedic related rituals like the yasnas and all. So let's say the Persians were still Arya, but the Greeks no longer did that. So you could not call them Arya. So from our perspective, blood doesn't matter, behavior matters. Okay? If you no longer behave like a civilized person, you are a mlecha. Harshit Jain says, if they take Chabahar port, will India have a problem? Moreover, you have just slight redness in your left eye. Now it's my left eye, is it? Now it's my left eye. It is slightly red. Okay, I'll not zoom in again, but okay. All right. Just slight redness. I think there's a red light in this region. So everything appears red. You see? Everything on this side appears reddish because of this here and so on. So don't worry, I'm fine. The redness is an illusion. It's all Maya. So now the question is, if they take Chabahar port, will India have a problem? No, we have already walked out of Chabahar. We have liquidated our stake in Chabahar. We have paid whatever we were supposed to pay to the government of Iran, and we are out of it. So we no longer operate any part of Chabahar. It will not cause any problems for us. Iran says, should we Indians, not the government, citizens, be pro-Israel after what happened to that girls' school and how much we citizens have suffered for their war? See, we Indians, forget about the government of India. What should our position as Indian citizens be? What should our stance be as Indian citizens? As Indian citizens, our business is to be pro-India. That's all. Only be pro-India. Don't be pro any other nation. Why do we have to be pro some nation or the other? We should only be pro India. Be very narrow minded in this matter. Only pro India, nothing else. Don't be pro any other government, any other nation. So that's how it should work. And what happened to that girls' school is obviously horrific. It is unforgivable. Whoever did that, it looks like the Americans did that, okay? Not Israel. Most likely it was the Americans who did that. They most likely fired a Tomahawk missile on that school. And it's not the first time the Americans would have done something like that. So my simple recommendation is don't be pro any other nation, only be pro India. When some nation cooperates with us, they are cooperating with us because it serves their interests. Okay, international relations are all based on self-interest. So if you have good relations with a nation, it's only because it is serving that nation's interests, and it's also serving our interests. It's not because they love us or they have something in common with us. Okay, please understand this. Be realistic. I am not saying be anti some nation. I'm not recommending any such thing. I'm just saying be pro India only. No, don't be pro any other nation. Kraz says, weak people give rise to tough times. Tough times give rise to strong people. Strong people create good times, and good times create weak people. The cycle continues. How to break the cycle at an ideal situation that is strong people and good times? You can't. It's human nature that this cycle continues. You can't break this. You can't break this. This is in the context of dynastic cycles and imperial cycles, and that inevitably happens, right? Inevitably happens. So if you want a dynasty to last long or an empire to last long, you have to ensure that the succession process always gives the baton to the best possible candidate at all times. But that obviously, theoretically, everybody understands that, but still, it doesn't work that way in real life. So you can't break this cycle. This is simply it's caused by human nature, and you can't change that. Yeah, so can't break the cycle. Maharana says, is Hormuz the multipolar kill shot for the dollar? So you've been a member for 49 months. Good God, that's how many? It's over 4 years. Thank you so much. I have no idea. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Okay. The question is Hormuz the multipolar kill shot for the dollar, US dollar? It could become that if this situation persists and the Americans, even after attempting land invasions, ground invasions, whatever, are unable to open the Strait of Hormuz. If they are unable to open it at all, then, and this situation persists, let's say hypothetically 6 months, then yeah, the petrodollars could start crumbling. Because if Iran becomes the dominant power in the region, they could force the regional nations, the Gulf nations, to start selling their oil, the product in other currencies, maybe the Chinese yuan or something else. So this could be the beginning of that process. It will all depend on how things go in the next phase of the war. Siddesh Pandarkar says, okay, Modi ji mentioned seaweed in his latest speech. Are we finally trying out seaweed biofuel? It could be a huge advantage given our massive coastline. Okay, I'm not aware of this. Let me see what Mr. Modi has said. Okay. Narendra Modi seaweed. What did he say? Prime Minister Modi is actively promoting seaweed cultivation in India to boost the blue economy, enhance fishermen's incomes, strengthen the rural economy. His government supports the sector through the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, with a special emphasis on establishing cultivation clusters and empowering coastal communities. So, seaweed production could be a key non traditional income source. Promotion of the blah blah blah. Man Ki Baat, Fisher Folk, Strong Foundation, Fisheries and Seaweed. I'm not sure what is to be done with the seaweed. Um, See, what are the uses? What are the uses of seaweed? People consume seaweed in some countries as a food. You can turn seaweed into biofuel. Can you use it as a fertilizer? I suppose you can transform it into fertilizer. So some seaweed species have medicinal properties. So I'm not sure what India hopes to achieve through seaweed. Um, okay, let's see. How is seaweed used in India? Raw material for industrial phycocolloids, agar, all these things, organic biofertilizers in agriculture, pharmaceutical and nutraceutical products. Yeah, so we are not really looking at making this, turning this into biofuel. Doesn't look like that. So I'm not aware of what Mr. Modi has said. I'm just trying to quickly take a look at what the Google AI is saying, and it doesn't look like there is any emphasis on turning seaweed into biofuel. And to turn seaweed into biofuel, you'd have to extract massive quantities of seaweed, which could devastate the seaweed populations, actually. So I think better than that, it makes sense to use the biomass, that is a waste product from the 1.4 billion Indian people, that should be used to produce biofuel. That makes more sense, in my opinion. And you would have to create a whole infrastructure for that, but it's certainly possible. So yeah, it doesn't look like we are looking into turning seaweed into biofuel. Doesn't look like that. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, I have seen some people on the internet telling that Pakistan is the next target of US and Israel. So we should support them against Iran. Why would they attack Pakistan, I wonder? So the theory that some people are proposing is that once Israel and the US are done with Iran, they will attack Pakistan. And that's why we should support the US and Israel against Iran. What is the guarantee that once they are done with Iran, hypothetically, they will go against Pakistan? Pakistan is their asset. Why will they destroy it? I don't know who comes up with these theories, but I don't agree with this at all. Yeah, I agree with the question. Why would they attack Pakistan? I don't see any logical reason why the US and Israel would attack Pakistan today. Pakistan is their asset. They will not attack it. So I don't agree with this theory. I think it doesn't make sense. Godliness says, news from the last few weeks stating heavy casualty numbers for Russia, and now UK is using its navy to seize Russian tankers. It seems Russia is stuck worse than Ukraine, worse in Ukraine than the US is in Iran. Yeah, it looks like that from whatever we are hearing in the news. So the question is, why is Russia not fighting back? Russia has a massive military. It's not used its air force essentially at all in the Ukraine war. Very, very minimal air force involvement. And I'm sure they have plenty of missiles, and they're producing missiles in very large quantities, and drones in very large quantities. So why isn't Russia employing the same tactics and methods and strategies the Americans are employing in Iran? Whatever options the Americans have on the table in Iran, Russia also has the same options on the table vis-a-vis Ukraine. They can destroy Ukrainian power plants. They can destroy Ukraine's water supply. They can do other things the Americans have done. So why is Russia not doing that? Is the question that I am unable to answer. Is there some kind of secret understanding with the US of some kind, that once the Americans are done with Iran, the Russians will be given Ukraine? Is there some such thing? Does Mr. Putin still believe American promises? I'm not sure what the deal is. But looks like Russia is being hit hard right now and it's not able to respond. And it looks like it's stuck really bad in Ukraine. Looks like that. So I would agree with you. Yes. Gaurav Contractor says, your take on Islamabad beat that happened today. I am not aware of this. I'm not a news surfer. I don't know what's happening in real time. It doesn't matter what's happening in real time. Long term is what matters. But let me see. What is this Islamabad meet? Islamabad meeting. What happened? Pakistan hosts talks with Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt on Iran war. See, Pakistan doesn't matter in the Iran war. Saudi Arabia doesn't matter. Turkey doesn't matter. Egypt doesn't matter. The nations that matter in the Iran war are the US, Israel, and Iran. Okay. So, what was the objective of this thing, of this conference or whatever? Let's see. Dawn is a Pakistani website. Yeah. Ways for early and permanent end to the Middle East war discussed at quadrilateral moot, says Dar. Foreign ministers of Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia photographed during a quadrilateral huddle. Okay. So they are trying to find ways and means for an early and permanent end to this war. Look, as long as the US wants to fight and Israel wants to fight, what can these nations do? Okay, so I don't think it's very consequential what's happening in Islamabad. It doesn't really make much of a difference to the war. It's the US and Israel that are calling the shots, and it's Iran that's fighting back. These nations can't do much about it. So, unless they can persuade the US and Israel to end the war, there's nothing much they can do by holding these conferences and talks. Nothing much. Piyush Suri has become a new member. Thank you very much, sir, Piyush ji, and welcome to the channel's membership. Thank you. Neil Shah says, big fan, thank you. The Uttarakhand state government has introduced the Ramayana and Gita into its school curriculum to promote value-based education thoughts. Well, as long as these subjects are taught properly, that's good. I think it's good. So the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, gives you incredible life lessons. And the Ramayana is one of the core foundations of our culture, right? And the Mahabharata is I think it's a little more, Chanakyan than the Ramayana. The Mahabharata came later, of course. So I think Ramayana and Bhagavad Gita, of course, the Bhagavad Gita is something that is embedded in the Mahabharata, isn't it? So I think my thoughts. What are my thoughts? I think this is a great idea, as long as these concepts and these subjects are taught properly, yeah, without any distortions. In that case, it's excellent. I'm very pleased to hear this. Amit Sharma says, how strong is the relationship between China and Iran? And is China secretly supporting Iran? China is not secretly supporting Iran. It's essentially openly supporting Iran. In what sense? No direct involvement of China in the war. But China has given Iran access to its Beidou satellite positioning system. Beidou is the Chinese version of GPS. The Russians have also given Iran GLONASS, which is the Russian version of GPS. And the Chinese Beidou seems to be in some ways superior to the American GPS system. So that's one thing. The second thing is that there are Chinese spy satellites that are giving Iran information about what's happening on the ground in close to real time. So that's another help that China is offering to Iran. Now, why is China doing this? Because China wants Iran to continue to exist. Iran is an opponent of the US. China, Russia, Iran are the three major powers that still stand up to the US. Almost nobody else does, right? So, and China, it imports oil from Iran. Iran is a major supplier of oil to China. Between 15 to 20% of China's oil comes from Iran. And if the Americans win this war, then that will be shut off to China, or it will be available to China only if only under American conditions. So that's why China wants Iran to not be defeated, and that's why the Chinese are supporting Iran, and the Chinese have a 25-year strategic agreement deal with the Iranians, and the terms of the deal are not known; they're secret. So this relationship is pretty strong. Yeah. Any plans for long content based on books like UA? What's UA? Oh, Understanding America. Right now, that is not on the cards, but that project is right now on ice. But it's not been cancelled. So in the future, it may I will resume it at the right time. But right now, no other plans because of the way things are going right now in the world. WYBKT says third IRGC's targeting precision is underrated. All right, sir. Okay. uh, Jimmy Lee says, how was your childhood growing up in an EU nation during the Cold War? I spent a few years in Switzerland, in the city of Geneva mostly, Genève. Switzerland is not part of the EU as far as I understand. Is it now part of the EU? It was not a part of the EU. There was no EU back in the day. So my childhood was nice. Switzerland is a very pretty place. Yeah. Uh, my primary language was French. There was a time when I used to think in French. So it was my primary language for a while. And it was nice. It was nice. Yeah. Godliness says, hypothetically, if this US Iran war turns into an energy disaster, causing famine in countries like Bangladesh, crores of people can line up on our borders for refuge, then what? Many will illegally enter. Well, if crores of people line up on our borders, they should be kept out. Our responsibility is towards our citizens. Okay? We are not responsible for the citizens of other nations. That's not how it works. So, if crores of people hypothetically line up on our borders for refuge, they have to be kept out. They should not be allowed to illegally enter. The way things are right now, if this happens tomorrow morning, many will, like you say, illegally enter. Well, the government needs to plan for these contingencies. Let's say in 6 months' time, there is an issue like this, then we should plan for that right now and put the requisite, things in place to ensure that if there are attempts for millions to enter India, that none of them is able to succeed. So the government of India, the central government, needs to start making preparations for such eventualities right now itself. And not a single foreigner should be allowed to enter India illegally. Legally is a different matter. They should be welcomed if they are entering legally. All legal foreigners who are entering India legally should be welcomed, but no illegal entry. Okay, Neil Shah says, you have also mentioned that Hinduism might not survive the next 100 years, but I feel like it has more chances than others, considering even urban India were found to be only 3 or 4% less religious. Okay, so I hope that you're right. You see, nobody will be more pleased than me if our culture and our religion survives way more than the next 100 years. The way things are going right now, I fear for the future of our culture, our civilization, and our religion, our religions. I fear for the future. And why do I say this? It's because I see people becoming more and more deracinated. And how many people in urban parts of India actually practice their religion? There are some cultures, some religions in which you're supposed to pray 5 times a day. There are some religions in which you're supposed to every month pay a 10% tithe to the local authorities, and you're supposed to have mass once a week or whatever it is, Sundays. And these people, they follow this religiously. But the people who practice our religions, non-foreign religions, Indian culture, how many of us in urban cities, urban centers, even practice our religion? So because of various issues like this, I am a little, worried about the survival of our culture and civilization. But I hope you're entirely 100% correct, and I hope that I'm entirely wrong. I hope so. So I hope that you are right. Let us be optimistic. Ritvik Yadwanshi says Iran may target undersea cables. Could this trigger Starlink's rise in our region? Trump trying to warp this war quick. Will Israel let him? Trump trying to wrap this war up quickly. Will Israel let him do that? If Israel wants to keep on fighting, I don't think they will allow Trump to walk out of the war, and Trump won't be able to, I suppose. Now, if the Iranians target undersea cables, that will cause disruptions in India, definitely, and it will cause longer latency times and all that in India. It's going to degrade internet services in India for sure. In some parts of India, it may even be disrupted for some time. So, could this trigger Starlink's rise in our region? That's a very good question. I hope not. So if that sort of thing happens, the Americans will immediately offer Starlink to India. Let's go ahead. Let's operationalize Starlink. Please give us the permissions. I hope the government of India says no to that if this happens. Because Starlink is a threat to India, like I've explained many times. It means now if we allow Starlink to operate in India, then we are no longer in control of the internet in the country. We can't switch it off if required. And Starlink has been used in regime change operations multiple times. And Elon Musk once tweeted that if that we will provide Starlink in a certain country, and if the government is a problem, they can shake their fist at the sky, but nothing will change. We can't have Starlink in India. Absolutely not. So I hope the government says no to any such proposals if this sort of situation happens. Bhaskar Gupta says, play rough. Okay, you want to reverse this because it's not allowed normally. Ask Aru Rahul. Ask A Rahul to connect me via mail on VISHODI. Okay, listen, I'm not able to copy paste these words from here, so I won't be able to do it. But I suppose A Rahul can take a screenshot and reverse it. All right? Okay. Illuminate by Tarun. Thank you very much, Tarun. Thank you. 24 Bharat says, Major General Bakshi, Major General Dr. G.D. Bakshi. He's so cool, true nationalist. He is quite the man, isn't he? I'm a big fan of Major General Dr. G.D. Bakshi ji. He's also a scholar. Do you know? He's written a book on the Saraswati civilization. Right? Great man, absolutely. And great fun to listen to, isn't he? And I've once shared a stage with him. Should I? Okay, give me a second. There's this video on my channel that I can show you in which he's also there on the stage. Give me a second. Let's do this. Okay. So this is my channel. Let's go to videos. Okay, we'll search for this. Aryan invasion. Let's see. Do you find this? Yeah, this one. It's an overview of the Aryan invasion migration myth. And if you see the thumbnail, Dr. G.D. Bakshi is standing next to me. And this was a book release function of his book on the Saraswati civilization. So, yes, awesome gentleman, isn't he? That says, okay, I see what you did there. That says, who will succeed Soros? Will he be a threat for India? I can't say who will succeed Soros. Maybe his son will succeed Soros. His son is married to this Pakistani American person, right? Huma Abedin, who was working for Madame Hillary Clinton. So could be his son, I suppose. And these people are all threats for India. Absolutely. Okay. Hyphen says, everyone is choosing sides. India is choosing discounts. As it should be. As it should be. Right? India should not take any sides. India should not choose sides. India should choose discounts. So India is doing the right thing, and I approve of it. Yes, sir. Pradeep Kumar Roy says some Indian American guy on the internet said the Sumerian civilization was the oldest. Also, ancient Indians came from Iraq and Syria, that region. Okay, let them say it. How do we care? We should not get upset about this, okay? This is the prevailing dogma. It's the prevailing dogma in academia. And that's what's taught to everybody. See, most people don't want to think. I personally used to be a complete believer in the Aryan invasion theory. And I used to get annoyed when people used to say that, the Aryan invasion theory is fake. I used to get annoyed because I spent a lot of time not thinking about this. Then one day I thought, okay, I decided, let me look into this myself. Let me look into the actual evidence, not the textbooks, not the history books. Let me look at the actual evidence, the archaeological evidence, the genetic evidence, and so on and so forth. Let me look at the actual pieces of evidence. So I went through research papers, I went through a lot of stuff. And then eventually I realized, what the hell? I was completely wrong to believe in the Aryan invasion theory. And that's when I wrote that article, the Aryan invasion myth. And in case you want to read that article, let me plug it right here. Okay. So let's see. Aryan invasion myth, Chavda. You can read it on Medium. You can read it on India Facts. You can read it on the original. Yeah, the original article was on India Facts. Here it is. Okay. This is the original article. It was written in May 2017. That's 9 years ago. And this article is still the gold standard. This is where the entire matter started, because I was the first person to put all the pieces of information from so many different fields together. Okay, this is the OG article, 2017. Before this article, you will not find any article on the internet which debunks this. Today, everybody's an expert. Everybody says it's a myth and all, but this is the article they are all referring to. Without they will not admit it, but this is the article everybody has been referring to. So check it out if you so wish. Hyphen says, is this a war or just a global price or oil price update? Well, it's a war, but it's also messing up the global oil prices for sure. So it's a war that is having the effect of updating the global oil prices, and the global oil prices are being pushed upwards deliberately, especially by Ukraine targeting the Russian oil export facilities. Right, the 3 ports they've been targeting over the past 3-4 days. So yeah, it's gonna cause a tremendous amount of pain. It looks like on ordinary people around the world, which is sad. Empty Box says, how to deal with social anxiety. Any tips? Social anxiety. What is social anxiety? I suppose it is anxiety you feel while having social interactions. I suppose you have to find the root cause of your social anxiety. What is it that makes you anxious? Why do you become anxious while having social interactions? That is what you have to discover for yourself. And then you have to, address that or go beyond or transcend that, whatever it is, whatever the root cause is. So some people are introverts and they're not comfortable, interacting socially. That is one cause. Some people are shy. I think shy and being introverted, is it similar? Or I don't know. So introversion can make it uncomfortable for people to have social interactions. What else? Maybe you imagine you're not very good looking, which is why you imagine that people are judging you, and that's why you feel anxiety. I don't know. There are lots of potential causes for social anxiety. So you have to discover the root cause for you. Why is it, why do you have social anxiety? Why does social interaction cause anxiety for you? You have to find it out for yourself and then find the solution for that. And the simplest way to do this is to perhaps speak to a professional, I suppose, of some kind. I'm not sure what are the professionals who deal with social anxiety. But yeah, main thing is introspect. Spend some time thinking about why you become anxious. And once you discover the root cause, find the way to solve it. All right? All the best, Empty Box. Okay, Illuminate by Tarun says, my name is Rayan. All right, Rayan. Can we call this war World War III? How does it impact India? It's not World War III yet. It's still a regional war, because there is, apart from the US, there's no other non-regional player in this war right now. It's Israel versus Iran, and the Gulf nations are collateral damage, and the US is the external actor in here. Beyond these nations, nobody else is involved. So right now, it's not World War III. But if, let's say, European nations get involved, if China gets involved, if Russia gets involved more directly, then you could call, if Pakistan gets involved. Even if Pakistan is involved, it's still a local regional war. But if China, Russia, and European nations get involved, that's when you can start calling it World War III. How does it impact India? Oil prices rising, gas shortages potentially. This is how it impacts India. Okay. Humanity Survives says, do you know about the 2020 rule for screen usage? I am not aware of it. Let me see. 20-20-20 rule for screen usage. What is that? Okay, to American Optometric Association says, to alleviate digital eye strain, where is it? To help alleviate digital eye strain, follow the 20-20-20 rule. Take a 20-second break to view something 20 feet away every 20 minutes. Oh, very interesting. Take a 20-second break. Let's zoom in. Let's bigify this. Embiggen. Let's embiggen it even more. Even more. Okay. To help alleviate digital eye strain, follow the 20-20-20 rule. And what's the 20-20-20 rule? Take a 20-second break to view something 20 feet away every 20 minutes. Interesting. Sounds like a great way of sounds like a great thing to do. Well, I wasn't aware of this. Sounds logical, makes sense. Every 20 minutes, 20 feet away, 20 seconds. Good. I shall practice this because I spend a lot of time staring at screens. I do. Yes. Thank you so much, Humanity Survives. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And I thank you on behalf of all my viewers because it will help everybody. Thank you. Hyphen says, no question, just don't want the stream to end. I really appreciate that. I'm so glad. I'm thankful that you enjoy these live streams, and I thank you for being a viewer and everybody else as well. Thank you so much. Raman Gill says, energy lockdowns coming. Time to return to the motherland. Okay, you are paying in Canadian dollars. I suspect you must be in Canada in that case. Energy lockdowns coming. I hope they don't come. And if you're in Canada, you won't have energy lockdowns because Canada is a major producer of oil, at least oil. Let me see how much. How much? No, that's not the right question. What is Canada's rank among the oil producing nations? That's a good question. That's a better question to ask. Canada is the world's fourth largest oil producer and fourth largest exporter. So if you are in Canada, then you will have no issues whatsoever. You will have no energy lockdowns. Canada is the world's fourth largest oil producer. But if you are not in Canada, and if you are in a nation that could have energy lockdowns, well, if you return to the motherland India, what if there's a similar situation in India, in India as well? I don't know. I think right now, just wait it out. Returning to the motherland may not make things much better for you. You may have a similar situation in the motherland as well. So, yeah, my suggestion is please do your own due diligence. Consult your local experts as to how things may turn out to be, and consider all the pros and cons, all the risk factors, and make your decision after being thoroughly informed and after doing your research thoroughly. All right? All the best. Cunedict Bemberbatch says, what's your opinion on Palm Beach Pete? Is he him? Okay, I somehow know what you're talking about. I somehow know what you're talking about. How is that? Is he him? I'm a little skeptical. I'm a little skeptical that he is Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. In case, let's see. Jeffrey Epstein spotted somewhere, right, on Palm Beach. Palm Beach Pete. So yeah, Jeffrey Epstein's doppelganger. Let's go to images. I don't think it's him. I don't think it's him. It's definitely someone who looks quite similar, but it's most likely a different person. Most likely a different person. Yeah, I think it's a different person, but who knows? I may be wrong. Who knows? Okay. IPKS says, "Sir, Bobby ko ban nahi karna chahiye tha. He tried. What happened? He tried what? He tried. I don't look. I've been getting these complaints for a very long time. We want a peaceful experience, so it is what it is." Harshit Jain says, "I don't think ground troops will fight anywhere. It's just a display for the world. And suddenly we will see a ceasefire and Trump declaring no need for ground invasion, even though the US was ready to fight." So you don't think there's going to be a ground invasion? It's possible. It's all a bluff. It's possible it's a bluff by Trump, right? See, like Sun Tzu said, you have to mislead and misdirect your enemies. So you never know. Maybe the real objective is something else entirely. So one hopes there'll be a ceasefire soon. I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. But we also have to consider the military buildup seriously. They are bringing in large numbers of troops now. So we have to, and Iran will have to take it very seriously, of course. Okay. Only Facts and Data says, multipolar world first step to type 1 civilization. So you're talking about the Kardashev scale here. And on the Kardashev scale, a type 1 civilization is a civilization that is able to control and harness all the energy and resources on its home planet. A multipolar world is not the first step in that direction. For a Kardashev type 1 civilization, you need a unipolar world with a one world government. Only then it'll most likely, that's the only condition in which it can happen. Okay. Giora TV says, Trump's nature is understandable, but why is CENTCOM even considering a ground invasion when US's most potent and decisive force, the air power, has already failed to neutralize Iran? Well, they have their own considerations, they have their own calculations, they have their own analysis, their own logic. So we know that air power has failed to neutralize Iran. And the objective is to win somehow, right? Trump wants to win. So if air power is not working, Trump will say, let's try something else. We can't use naval power because we can't cross the Strait of Hormuz. So now let's try a ground invasion, I suppose. I don't know what the rationale is. I think a ground invasion is likely to be suicidal. Knowing everything we know about Iran's preparations and Iran's geography and terrain, right? So I think it's not the right thing to do. I think it's very dangerous for the US. So I don't know if it's actually going to happen, right? But looks like it's being considered very seriously. For example, we have this message that has gone out. And I'll not read it all over again, but it looks like the Americans are preparing the soldiers mentally, the Marines mentally. Yeah. So it's still all hypotheticals right now, but maybe there are calculations that said that maybe the US has a chance to grab some territory and hold on to it. We'll see. Abhirup Sarkar says, out of topic, but finding deep breathing and Sudarshan Kriya heal overthinking. So, in your experience, deep breathing and Sudarshan Kriya, they heal overthinking. Well, great, great. Sudarshan Kriya is the technique that is used by the disciples of Shri Shri Ravi Shankarji, right? And it is a technique that he has, I think, invented or discovered, Shri Shri Ravi Shankarji. And I think it has something to do with breath work, right? Breathing, deep breathing, and controlled breathing. Okay, so I'm glad it's working for you. Good. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, why do men from good families even marry nowadays? It's dangerous, demeaning, and a loss-making venture in this feminist, anti-Hindu India. Sometimes I feel like the Muslims are right; they are not cowards. Well, you're supposed to marry. You're supposed to continue your lineage, right? You're supposed to. One of the reasons for existing is that you exist because your forefathers procreated, and it is a duty that you have to procreate, to continue uh, your lineage, your civilization, all of that. So that's why I personally think that everybody should marry, but you have to marry carefully. You have to be very careful about who you marry. And as individuals, you may not be able to make the right choices, which is why you need to take the help of family. And that's called arranged marriage. I think today, as long as families are involved, elders are involved, arranged marriages are way less likely to be dangerous to you than so-called love marriages. And even then, it's not guaranteed that it'll be fine, because these days girls, I don't know what they're being taught, but they feel like it's okay to, I don't know, do whatever happens these days. And yeah, the laws and everything is it's all loaded against men, right? Yeah, but look, what happens if you stop marrying? Or the option is you don't marry but have kids nonetheless. Well, then we are going in the same direction as the West. Broken societies, broken families. So the solution to all of this is to clean up the act, to fix our legal system, to fix the laws. And the laws should be gender neutral, not biased in favor of a certain gender. The law should not be biased in favor of women or men. They should be completely gender neutral. They should be completely impartial. That's what needs to happen. But yes, I understand why young men feel this way. I do understand why they feel this way, and it's terrible. Vision says you spent a considerable amount of your childhood abroad. How did you prevent yourself from becoming a version of Ayub or Panu? Ayub or Panu. I don't know who Ayub is. I may perhaps know who Ayub is. I'm not sure. And I will not utter the full name here. And Pannu, Guru Patwanta Singh Pannu. How did I prevent myself from becoming like that? Look, I was completely westernized when I was abroad. And honestly, when I came back to India, I wasn't very pleased about coming back to India. Okay, as a child. But then you grow. Then you learn. Then you become more mature. So I don't know how it happened. I was very westernized. My primary language was French. But the way my life went, it brought me to where I am today. Okay, I think it was a good thing to happen to me that I spent a certain amount of time, certain number of years abroad, because I got to see the world at the time as a child. Then again, as an adult, I did travel again. So if you travel to various parts of the world, you understand the world better. That's why I highly recommend to everybody to travel as much as possible, depending on how much resources you have. If you have the resources, do travel so that you see the world and see the way people live in other parts of the world. But somehow or the other, I ended up where I am today. I haven't exactly analyzed in depth how I did not become this or that, but I'm glad I ended up where I am today. Apar says, why can't India switch to biogas and save on forex rather than LPG? Because we have biogas plants like a cottage industry in some scattered parts of India. It's not a full-fledged thing all across India, right? To have biogas plants everywhere in India, you will have to set up the infrastructure for that, which will cost a lot of money. And politicians don't like spending money on things. They like spending money on freebies. Setting up a pan-India biogas infrastructure, it's going to be very expensive, but it's going to be a tremendously beneficial long-term investment, right? India will become completely self-sufficient, at least in terms of cooking gas. And even India may even have a surplus that it could potentially sell to other countries. Because we've got 1.4 billion people, and all the waste that is generated, okay, not just as a consequence of our digestion, but also cooking and all that, tremendous amount of biomass is generated. So India should switch to that. But that's a process that will take about 2 to 5 years to set up the infrastructure everywhere. Some states may not cooperate and all that. That's always the problem in India, federalism. There are political issues, there are logistical issues, and so much money to spend instead of giving freebies for votes. Who'll do that? So there are these issues. I hope somebody has the visionary leadership to do this. I hope so. Polynomial says, any suggestions for interesting topics that need to be researched, just like you did for Aryan invasion theory, not necessarily just in history, but other domains. Oh, I have a bunch of topics in physics that need to be researched. Very big open questions, open problems in physics. What's dark matter? What's dark energy? Do we have the answers? We don't. What's gravity? We don't know what gravity is. I mean, we know what Newton said about gravity. That's not entirely correct. We know what Einstein said about gravity, general relativity, the best theory we have. Even that has problems. And then, so what is gravity? What is dark matter? What is dark energy? We don't know the answers. Big open problems. What is time? What's time? Then outside of physics, what's consciousness? Very, very interesting topics we don't have the answers to. And I'm sure there's so much more. So if you ask me this question, the first things that come to my mind is the open questions in physics. Apart from that, there are many other topics in history and other things I'm sure that are very interesting. But I can't think of those right now. What comes to me off the top of my head is always physics. Okay. Aditya Vashinkar says, USA calls India key. Trump, Musk, Modi talk. Thoughts? I don't care. I don't care what they say. I only care about their actions. Trump said something nice about India. It doesn't mean we should start celebrating that everything is good in the world. Okay? So Trump, Musk, Modi had the talk. It means most likely that they would have talked about Starlink possibly. Maybe the Americans want the Indians to operationalize Starlink within India, to give Starlink permission to start beaming its signal into India. I don't know. That's a possibility. Why else would Elon Musk be involved? I don't think they would talk about Twitter or X, right? I don't think they'll talk about Grok. Tesla, not really. Most likely it would be about Starlink. And about the Americans calling India a key nation, I don't care. I don't need your praise. So understand that the India-US relationship is very complicated. It is, it's not, we don't have shared interests. We have some shared interests, little bit, and we don't have shared values. And the US is not behaving like a friendly nation towards India. Please understand that. So it's complicated. The relationship is complicated and difficult. Chirag Shetty says, your take on Professor Jiang's predictions. I am not aware of his predictions. I don't watch the guy. I'm sure he's very interesting. I'm sure he's brilliant. I've seen a couple of his clips, and he does sound like he knows what he's talking about. But I haven't seen his long videos, and I have no idea what predictions he's made. I think one prediction he made is that Iran will win this war against the US. So that is something that I tend to agree with at this point in time. That Iran won't be defeated. And at the end of the war, whenever it happens, it's going to be the US that ends up on the non-winning side, at least, if not the defeated side. So I would agree with that. I don't know about, he has some theory of Pax Judaica or something I hear. I am not aware of what the details of this theory are, but I don't know. So since I have not watched any of his long videos, I can't really say much about the predictions, apart from the Iran winning this war thing. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, I have seen most Hindu men in my previous generations to be mostly cowards, without an iota of self-respect, because of Bollywood maybe. unlike people from other religions. I hope things are changing nowadays. Okay, I'm not sure why you feel that way. If we talk about previous generations, we have Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, we have Maharana Pratap. We have so many Hindu men who fought for our culture, our civilization, and gave up their lives for us. But if you're talking about personal experience of people you've seen with your own eyes, well, maybe it's the case. I don't know about that. Uh, Overall, we are still a society that is recovering from roughly 1,000 years of foreign occupation in various parts of India. I'm not saying the whole of the subcontinent was under foreign occupation for 1,000 years. It was progressively expanding foreign occupation. And we are suffering from the consequences of that even now. We haven't decolonized at all. We are a nation today. India is a nation state. We are a nation with PTSD and amnesia together. What is PTSD? PTSD is post traumatic stress disorder. Our society has taken tremendous trauma. It has suffered tremendous trauma. So, when you suffer trauma, there is post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, where you have symptoms that you can't explain, but which are caused by the trauma that you experienced in the past. So, India has PTSD, but India also has amnesia, which means it can't remember what happened to it. Why can't we remember what happened to us? Because our education system doesn't teach us that. So we don't know what happened to us, and we have these symptoms of post traumatic stress disorder. That's why India is a deeply confused, deeply troubled nation. And that's why you have these problems in people in India, where some people maybe, like you say, exhibit symptoms of cowardice or whatever. So, what needs to happen is we have to first of all heal the amnesia by teaching our people the true history of what happened in the past 1,000 years and removing all the lies and distortions about our culture, our civilization, our religion, our history, all of that. That's the first step that needs to be taken. How do you do that? By reforming the education system. That's why I keep saying the education system is the key to everything. And then once we understand what happened, we can start dealing with the stress and the PTSD. And then we can start actually addressing the PTSD. So that's what needs to happen. But the government of India doesn't want to make any of these changes. Polynomial says, would you bet on acquiring deep knowledge about mining and refining rare earths and energy? Because India will have to do that soon, maybe in 20 years. India needs to have done that yesterday, actually. India has the world's largest reserves of rare earth minerals, of rare earth elements. But we don't mine and refine any of that. India needs to start doing this at the earliest, not in the next 20 years, the next 5 to 10 years maximum. And when it comes to energy, yes, we need to discover our own sources of energy, maybe in the Andamans, wherever. If we discover large reserves in the Andamans, we're going to have to significantly bulk up our navy to defend what is ours. So these things need to happen urgently. We are running out of time. The world is changing very rapidly, and now it's very openly the case that might is right. So we need this. Rajat says Chinese GPS versus Indian Navik GPS, which is better? The Indian Navik GPS is dead. It is not functional anymore. And the Indian Navik system, when it was functional, was confined only to the subcontinent and slightly beyond the subcontinent. It is not a global system, the Indian Navik. The Chinese Beidou is a global system. They have a global constellation of geostationary satellites. The Indian Navik GPS system was a local system. Small ambitions for India. And now it's no longer functional. So the Chinese system is way, way, way better. That's the sad truth. Jitha Gada says, used machine learning, MediaPy, and OpenCV. Are I 70% more blink, 10% more red than left eye? Okay, you used machine learning, MediaPy, and OpenCV, and the result is that my right eye is blinking 70% more. Do eyes blink independently of each other? and 10% more red than the left eye. So my right eye is 10% more red than my left eye. 20% more fatigue compared to the last four streams. You can Google those models, see a doctor. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this diagnosis. And I shall Google those models. And if required, I shall see a doctor. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the concern. Thank you. Pradeep Kumar Roy says difference between dark energy and dark matter. Okay, we kind of know what dark matter could be. Dark matter is it's either some kind of particle or maybe a class of particles. What kind of particle or particles? Particles that interact only gravitationally, but not through the electromagnetic or weak interaction. Some dark matter models say that particles could have the weak interaction, but from my perspective, pure dark matter, cold dark matter, is a particle or a class of particles that interacts only gravitationally. So if a particle does not interact through the electromagnetic interaction, it means it's invisible. Because light, color, all of this is electromagnetism in action. Photons are the the mediator particles of the electromagnetic interaction. So dark matter, if you look at the universe out there, you see all the light, all the stars, galaxies, nebulas, all of that all of that luminous material matter, it makes up about 4% of the mass energy of the universe. Only 4%. 96% of the universe is unknown to us. It's dark. Now about 24-25% of that unknown matter or energy is dark matter. And we know this because we can see this from the rotation curves of galaxies and so on. Most galaxies have big dark matter halos that we can't see, but we can sense them through gravitational interactions. So that is dark matter. That is some kind of unknown particle or class of particles, unknown particles. Dark energy is even more mysterious. We don't even know what it is. Is it a fluid? Is it a substance? Is it a new force? We don't know. But it accounts for about 70% of the mass energy of the universe. And it seems to be a fluid or a substance or a force that is causing the universe to expand in an accelerating manner. Okay? So dark energy could be a force or a fluid or a substance of some kind. Very mysterious. But dark matter is most likely some class of particle or particles. Okay. Hyphen says, the only stream that feels like our stream, not just the creator's stream. Thank you for all this free knowledge, sir. Years to come. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm really glad you like it. It's yours because it's driven by you, right? You ask the questions, I answer them as best I can, as best I can. Sometimes I can't, but I try my best. So it's an interaction between us, right? So it's as much yours as it is mine, if not more yours, because you set the agenda. I don't set the agenda. Right? You ask the questions, and that's what drives the streams. So it's all yours, actually. And you're very welcome. Thank you so much. Karan Rao says, your take on broker Pakistan. Won't it get them relevance? Broker Pakistan. Pakistan is a broker, is it? Did somebody say something about broker? What's my take on Pakistan? Pakistan is an artificial temporary nation that is whose days are numbered. Sooner or later, it will break up. That's how I see Pakistan. That's my take on them. I think Dr. Jaishankar called them broker or something, dalal or something. I don't care about that. Words. It doesn't matter to me. Ajinkya Pawar says, what could be the military applications of quantum mechanics? Well, let me give you one military application of quantum mechanics. Quantum physics. The nuclear bomb. It's all quantum physics. It's all quantum mechanics. Right? So that's one military application of quantum mechanics. All technologies that we use today are quantum mechanical in nature. See, we are interacting right now. I'm sitting here in this fantastic room. You're sitting wherever you are, and there's so many viewers who are watching this live, and so many who will watch it later. How are we communicating? How is this live stream possible? This live telecast possible? Because of quantum technologies. I'm using a computer of some kind to transmit this. The computer, it's microchips. They will not function without without the applications of quantum mechanics. Semiconductors, transistors, it's all quantum mechanical in nature, right? I'm using a camera to do this. The camera, its sensors, all of that, they're also quantum mechanical in nature. So everything, all technologies that we use today are are based on the applications of quantum mechanics. And these technologies are used in war as well, military applications, all of them. So, Apar, thank you very much. Indeed, thank you. Yashwant Prakash says, I listen to you when I drive HGV driver Great Britain off today. Thank you. You are very welcome indeed. You're very welcome. Okay. What's an HGV? HGV. Let me just quickly see what is an HGV. HG is Mercury, but there's a V here. What's HGV? Oh, a heavy goods vehicle. Okay. Okay, you are driving a heavy goods vehicle in the UK. Okay, got it. Well, thank you so much for listening to me. It's a privilege that I have you and other people listening to me, and I'm glad that I am able to provide some value. So, thank you very much, and you are very welcome. Thank you. Rajat says, once I intellectually started to realize the difference between pure consciousness and reflected consciousness, Chidavasa, on mind, it changed me completely. So the difference between pure consciousness and reflected consciousness. Are we talking about Advaita Vedanta here? Yeah, non-duality. The Atman and the Brahman. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So that's of course, when we discuss consciousness, we're not talking about physics, because physics can't define consciousness. So we're talking about philosophy, spirituality, religion, all of that. So yes, Atman and Brahman. I think that's what you're talking about. Okay. Hardik Joshi says, apparently Indian Defense Minister set up a meeting, Doval's secret meeting, and speculations about something to happen. We shall see. All right. Okay. Looks like something could be happening if, in case this is indeed what's happened. Doval's secret meeting. So if it's a secret meeting, how do we know about this? But anyway, this is a sensitive time in international affairs, in geopolitics. And our interests are also at stake when it comes to this ongoing war. And it's not like we have any shortage of enemies. So maybe something is going on. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay. Apar says, should we also include Arthashastra principles in India for civics sense reading interesting things after reading The Land of Seven Rivers by Sanjeev Sanyal? The Arthashastra is a treatise on economics and statecraft and international relations. Okay? It's not about civic sense. It's not about civics. It's about governance. So it's a manual for kings and emperors and for rulers. Okay? And it still is very relevant. It's definitely an interesting book to read, but it's not an easy read. It's not easy to read. You have to spend mental effort reading that book. So I would certainly recommend everybody reads that. Yeah. But it's not something that will give people civic sense. It's not for that. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, your views about the Land Sealing Act. None of my friends have ancestral land except me. That too, a few acres, all come from good families. Land Sealing Act. I'm not aware of this. But let me see. Land Sealing Act, India. Whoa. Land Sealing Act. Okay. The Land Sealing Act in India limits the maximum land holding any individual or family can own, with surplus land acquired by the government for redistribution to landless farmers to reduce rural inequality. Under 1972 national guidelines, the limit typically ranges from 10 to 18 acres for premium irrigated land to 27 to 54 acres for dry land. This sounds like very socialistic. This sounds like something a communist or socialist government would impose. The ceiling is Generally applied to a family of five, husband, wife, and minor children, rather than an individual. Land exceeding the set limit is deemed surplus, and the government acquires this land. And then what do they do with it? They make a royal mess of it, I suppose. Um, I think the motivation is good, but the execution and implementation may not be the best. 10 to 18 acres at most. What do you do? What's an acre? Let me just quickly find out what an acre is. Acres to square meters. Are acres. Acres to square meters. So 1 acre is 20 by 20. Okay, 20 by 20 square meters. An acre is, well, that's pretty small then, right? 20 meters by 20 meters. 2020. So 2. No. It's not 20 by 20. That would be 400. Okay, what is the square root of 40846? What's the square root of 4046? 63. It's 63 meters on one side. Okay. So, yeah, so that's not a lot of land. I think they can increase the ceiling at least. Okay, so I don't have any initial thoughts about this. I don't know about this act, and I haven't ever thought about it. But my first initial reaction is that it sounds something like something that a socialist or communist government would do. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I have to think. I will have to look it up in detail and study a little more before I say anything about it. But yeah, that's my first initial reaction about this. Okay, HC says, if ground invasion by the US, do I leave the UAE? See, I am probably not the right person to give you advice about this, okay? Because I don't live in the UAE. I don't have any skin in the game. I don't have any skin in the game. UAE obviously is a wonderful, very nice place. No question about that. So if there's a ground invasion by the US, what could happen? Iran will fight the ground invasion, but if the US is using the UAE and its, let's say, air bases or whatever, it's staging grounds for the invasion, then Iran will most likely hit out at the UAE in that case only. So I don't know if the US doesn't use UAE territory for staging the invasion, then UAE will not be hit by Iran. See, Iran has been very, very logical, and it's been very logical in its actions, and it's been retaliatory in its actions. It's not preempted anything thus far. So it's been a very rational actor so far. It won't unnecessarily, try to strike at the UAE. So as long as the US doesn't use the UAE as a staging area for the invasion, I don't think Iran will hit the UAE. But if the US does use UAE's territory, then you can expect Iran to target the UAE. So it depends on many factors. I can't really tell you whether you should leave the UAE or not. Overall, the government of the UAE has done a great job of sending those alerts by text message. Yeah, I hope things are good for the UAE. But I am not the right guy to answer this question. I'm not, because it depends on so many different factors, right? So yeah, I think you will have to make your own decisions based on your superior understanding of the situation, because you are right there. But if this war continues for a long time, I think it makes sense for everybody to at least temporarily leave this region. Okay? So let's say this war hypothetically lasts 6 months or 1 year. Hypothetically. I hope it ends tomorrow, but hypothetically. So it's a possibility, isn't it? So I think it makes sense for people who have the means to move out, that they move out at least temporarily until things settle down. That's what I would do if I was there. I would leave the place temporarily, then return once things are normal. That's what I would do. But I am not there. I'm just speaking in hypotheticals. I don't have any skin in the game. So please take advice from somebody who has actual skin in the game, not someone like me. Okay? All the best, sir. I hope things become fine soon. Prateep Kumar Roy says, Technos J Bharat is asking, did European colonial powers miss the historical opportunity to reoccupy the US during the 1861 Civil War, just like the US colonized Europe along with the USSR after World War II? No. So the US had its civil war in 1861, but none of the European nations at the time had the ability, the capability to cross the Atlantic with a big invasion force, okay, and then mount a proper successful invasion of the US. It was impossible. Impossible. So, no, they did not miss this historic opportunity. So, which were the major European powers at this time, 1861? You had the UK. Even the UK, with its major Royal Navy and all, did not have the capability to cross the Atlantic with a major invading force and launch a proper invasion of the US. Even the UK did not have that. Who else were the major powers in 1861? Spain wasn't that great anymore, right? Germany was still not unified at the time. It was unified in 1871. So it was still a decade away from unification. So the only major power, great power in Europe at the time, was the UK. You had the Habsburg Empire and all. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was it there at the time? Let's say it was. Let's say it was Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was not a major maritime power. So I think there was no European power at that time that had the wherewithal and the capability to mount a successful invasion of the US by crossing the Atlantic. It was not possible. No. Okay, Aditya says, Trump called Modi on the Iran war. The US sees India as a key regional power. Reports of Musk joining the call denied by India. What do I think? What I think is that Trump wants something from us. Okay? Otherwise, he will not call Modi. He has a favor to ask, or he has some demands to make. That's why he must have called Mr. Modi. He said the US says that they see India as a key regional player. Well, thank you for your nice words. We don't give a damn. Okay, we are what we are. I don't care what you see us as. We are what we are. We are a regional player. Yeah, we are a regional power. And why are we a regional power? Why are we not more than a regional power? Because the Americans have this policy of containment. It's containment policy towards India. And so they are not behaving like a friendly nation. So, and reports of Musk joining the call denied by India. So, did somebody claim that Elon Musk joined the call? Let's see what this has to say. Did Elon Musk join the call between Trump and Modi recently? The recent call. The recent call between Trump and Modi. So the New York Times claims that Trump joined in the phone call. Trump-Modi conversation says government. Which government? Trump-Modi. After reports. Okay, so the New York Times claimed that Musk was there. So what does the New York Times have to say? I don't subscribe to these guys, so I don't know. Let's see. Reject. Okay, paywall has hit. So I can't. So the New York Times seems to be claiming that so that Musk joined the call. I can't see what is the rationale for that. Or what they're saying. What are the details? But the government of India has denied the call. So what do I think? I think the Americans. So there are two possibilities. Either Musk was there or Musk wasn't there. If Musk wasn't there, then the Americans are trying to complicate things by claiming Musk was there, and they're trying to pressurize India somehow by inserting Musk into the thing. But if Musk was actually there and the Americans are telling the truth, then maybe India wants to play a different game and say that Musk wasn't there. So I don't know what exactly happened. But these are games that are played in geopolitics, right? But why did Trump call Modi? He probably has some demand to make, I suppose. That's why he would have called Modi. Otherwise, he won't call, right? Okay. Saurabh says, Can we tell if an ICBM is nuclear or not once launched? We simply can't tell what package it is carrying. We can't tell. How do we tell? You can't tell that whether a missile is carrying a conventional warhead or a nuclear warhead or no warhead at all. You can't tell. And that's the big issue. You can't. Om Naik says, what's your ultimate purpose in life? My ultimate purpose in life is to live life to the fullest, experience as much as possible good things, right? And hopefully give more to society than I take from it. I think that's enough. That's enough for me. Amisha Mishra says, good evening, ma'am. Good evening. History session next week, please. You're fantastic. Thank you so much, ma'am. I have the time to do a next week. See, there's so much happening. Next week, I'm planning to do at least 3 sessions. But if I insert a history session there, I'm not sure if that is going to be possible. I know that history is important, and that's why I do so many of those. But right now, the situation is such that I have to focus on the war. So I'll see if it's possible. If the war, calms down, then I'll insert a history session. Otherwise, in the future. But I really appreciate you, ma'am. I really, really appreciate the wonderful questions you ask. So we'll do a history session as soon as possible. All right? Okay. Pradeep Kumar Roy says, why doesn't the government ban all the Christianized Hindu organizations supported, funded, and founded by Freemasons? Only the government can answer these questions. Freemasons, are they? I haven't looked into the role of Freemasons in India, so I don't know about the Freemasons. But yeah, this is a question I suppose only the government of India can answer. I can't answer on their behalf. Yeah, we obviously should take actions and measures to end the foreign interference, whatever form it takes in our country. Yeah. All right. So this is the last super chat for the day. Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much, everybody, for the questions. I will call it a day over here. Let's end the live stream at this point. So thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Keep asking questions. Keep learning. Keep raising your standards. And I will see you very soon in the next one, which will happen, I'm pretty sure, very soon. Until then, take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.